9BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan. Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Overall, as a team, been very impressed with how hard these guys work. Not that I didn't expect them to work hard. It is part of our culture. They work hard and they're focused as a team.
Even with the Panthers playing starters, to worry about that on Saturday.
Mike Danger.
It's Mike Danger versus Mike Danger. The salary cap is a myth versus with that much dead cap, it's difficult to field a competitive team. Not wrong.
He's got you there.
Don't get inside my head, man. It's a treacherous place. I just don't like teams that carry as much dead cap as the Bills. It really, really bothers me.
Gene Battaglia.
So can I tell my side of the story here?
Sure, Gene. Tell your side of the story.
Hey, do you know Danger's got a favorite team in college football, and it's not Penn State? He's a Florida State fan. And no, that's not Misfidian of me.
Misfidian.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
We just create words in the sports bar. We have our own dialogue, our own language, our own glossary of terms.
I thought Rome was the only one that did this, but we've been doing this so long that sometimes I feel like we have a lot of inside jokes. Like last time we were out at 3, had somebody pull me aside and was like, I just got one question about the show. Yeah. What's the 9 times thing?
9 times.
And I realized how many people haven't seen that movie.
Oh, from Ferris Bueller's Day
Yeah.
Off? It's such an obscure thing, but it's one of those. That movie, I've said this before, that movie, when I watched it as a kid and watched it multiple times as a kid, as a young adult, hell, I introduced it to my daughters just a few years ago for the first time. There are so many little things in that movie that are just ingrained in my skull that whenever I hear the number 9, I don't hear the number 9, I hear
9 times.
If I say, hey, better, swing, better.
What do you think I was doing on Monday night at Rogers Center? Me and my daughter. We were both there. We were so he can't swing better. When I grab a mint, I don't just grab the mint. I grab it and I go mint, and then I walk on my way. There's just little things that movie has left. You know, it's taken up real estate in my brain that could probably be going to more productive things. Unfortunately. But yeah, that's what makes it fun, right? Like when you're in a group of friends and you have your inside jokes and, people want to know, like, well, what is that about? First fantasy football draft last night. Mm-hmm. And a former coworker of ours is in this league. And he goes, okay, where did Nantucket Explorers come from? My fantasy team name is Nantucket Explorers for 2024. Across all platforms.
Okay, so
across all platforms.
So the former coworker doesn't listen to the sports bar.
I think he does.
But
right. He might not have caught this because he's busy. He's got other things going on. He's got another kid on the way. He's got a life, right? He's got a lot happening. So
that's no excuse.
You're right. What kind of friend is he?
Yeah.
But I had to explain to him the backstory behind Nantucket Explorers over text, and my thing was that we have a theory. The way I kind of distilled it down is, for those of you who don't know, we believe that Bill Belichick is with a 24-year-old former beauty queen because he knows how to explore Nantucket better than any other guy. Now follow me on this. He knows all the spots. When you get down there, he knows exactly where you need to be. He knows the places to hit in order to make somebody satisfied. You follow me? He knows how to explore Nantucket better than some 20-year-old kid does.
Well, if you've ever been to Nantucket, it's not the place. No chain restaurant is allowed there. It's
exclusive.
It's private and exclusive.
Hard to get to.
And then once you're there, the first time you're there,
yeah,
you can feel a little out of place.
Sure.
Yeah.
But as you get comfortable, if you're
72-year-old Bill Belichick.
Sure. You get comfortable in your surroundings and you just know what you're doing. And that's why you want to be a Nantucket explorer. Bill Belichick explores Nantucket If you're following what I'm saying, huge exaggerated wink. So that the inside jokes, I don't know. I mean, like we always have our phone lines open at 866-4326, and we appreciate you reaching out to us on X at the Fan Rochester. I think our regulars, the people that listen to us daily, our hardcore regulars, they don't need explanation. They know about 9 times.
9 times.
They know about master strokes. They know about Francesa.
Who cares?
They know about meaningless stats that you'll hear over and over and over again.
And some shows, when you have breaking news, they'll have a sounder. Breaking news. No, not us here.
We do have a sounder.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Literally, breaking news. John Sterling almost breaking.
We have to credit Jack, one of our listeners, which is his real name.
Jack is not a real name.
It is his real name.
You know the sports bar. You know that take is evergreen. Jack is not a real name. Jack is short for Jonathan.
Right.
I thought John was short for Jonathan, but Jack apparently is short for Jonathan as well. What did Jack come up with?
He was the one who suggested that.
Oh, the breaking news.
Yeah.
No, he's the best. And look, why we do this, we love doing this because of you. We appreciate you so much. And what a joy and treat it is for us to talk sports here in the Flower City every afternoon from 3 until 6. We appreciate you listening at 95.7 FM at AM 950. In the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. We've got our video stream up for you at The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel, and also on Twitch. And one of our behind-the-scenes guys, Andrew Stelly, who actually helped get us set up with our video streams and our YouTube channel, got a big promotion today within our company. So big congratulations to our new VP of Video, and Andrew, who set us up here in the sports bar some time ago with the ability to stream to our audience and give you as many platforms to enjoy the show as possible. We're at 8. We won't stop until we get to 9.
9 times.
Andy Behrens of Yahoo Fantasy is going to stop by the sports bar later this afternoon.
Oh, all right. Now it's getting real. We hear the voice of Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy. He does the show every week online, prepping you. And to get a few of his minutes during the most busy time of year, I would think for him, everybody wants kind of his advice right now. So if you have questions for Andy Behrens, hit us up. Our handle, The Fan Rochester. But it's kind of what we'll call Fantasy Friday here in the sports bar, Mike Danger.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I mentioned I had my first draft last night. I was picking 5, and there's Andy. As I'm getting ready to enter the draft room, the draft is about to go live, and Andy's telling me how I can't screw up pick 5. You cannot screw up pick 5. I'm like, Andy, I hope you're right. I hope I did not screw up pick 5. I loved being a pick 5. I thought it was a nice place to be, a nice place to land, a good soft landing spot. But, man, I hope I didn't screw up pick 5. And Andy will be stopping by. He's the voice you hear when you're logging on to your draft room if you're on Yahoo as a platform. Yahoo Fantasy Sports, Andy Behrens will be stopping by, coming up here at 4:25. And you're right, it is Fantasy Friday. Drew Loftus, New York Post, is going to stop by later this hour.
Yeah, our annual visit. So we'll we won't be talking Jets and Giants with Drew. That's where he's based out of New York. But we'll hit him up with some fantasy questions. As I don't know, as far as this weekend, Danger, is there anything we can kind of evaluate? And the answer is, I guess, like that kid running around last night for Kansas City. All right, I'm at the end of the draft. Do you want him as your backup running back or just as a flyer at the end? Not even backup, but how deep is your league? But we'll talk to him about some of these fantasy issues as Drew Loftus coming back into the sports bar. New York Post coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, mentioned at the Fan Rochester on X, and how could I forget Greg, one of our regulars, reminding me. I mean, the regulars know about Chuck Muncie. I mean, again, if you're new to the show and you don't understand why Chuck Muncie has relevance to us and why we hold Chuck Muncie in high regard. I mean, it stems back to Gino's days at Fordham University doing a college sports talk radio show, and Chuck Muncie was basically his Baba Booey.
This warms my heart because this skipped generations here. Literally, like this was something from years ago and then hit us right between the eyes, and I had to explain to you the Chuck Muncie reference. And then you read the story of Chuck Muncie and you realize, wow, this guy was really great in the league.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, he did a lot of coke and freebased his way out of the league.
That's
well,
right.
that was the 80s in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, tragic story, tragic figure, but man, one hell of a football player. Remember him with the Chargers, and of course we have him immortalized here in our studio with a vintage black and white photo of Chuck Muncie, the number 42, when he was with the New Orleans Saints, and he looks like he just got the snot beat out of him.
I love that story. You going to the collectible show in Virginia with Tony, going to all these tables. Hey, do you got anything at Chuck Muncie? The dealer. Why?
Guy's like,
Why?
yeah, I got one of those in my back pocket, pal. Keep walking. I'm like, oh, okay. I've never been to a sports collector's show before, so I don't know. I'm sure that there's something somewhere that exists from this obscure player from the 80s. And sure enough, we go to a table, and this guy, he couldn't wait to tell me not just that he had a Chuck Muncie photo, but Chuck Muncie's college, Chuck Muncie's career, everything about you. He's like, yeah, you guys got a Chuck Muncie. Here it is. I'm like, perfect.
Oh, he couldn't have been more happy than like, you are speaking my language. Let me share my knowledge with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're one of those guys, if you're a football historian and you just love all of the players that make up the game, yeah, Chuck Muncie's somebody that you just know. All right, that's Chuck Muncie, the guy that freebased during games and was just an unbelievable force when he was with the Chargers. Appreciate that, Greg, and appreciate you listening as always. At The Fan Rochester on X, you can reach out to us at 585-866-4FAN. That's 866-4326. I don't know, Gino, where do we want to start today? Because I know Brandon Bean talked to the guys from One Bills Live. We've pretty much got the table set for tomorrow's preseason finale in Orchard Park with Carolina coming in. We know that the Bills starters won't play. We know that the Panthers starters will play, and I don't think that there's a lot for us to take away from preseason game number 3 other than who's making this team and who might be on the outside looking in come Tuesday.
This kind of encapsulates this for me tomorrow, because if you're thinking, all right, maybe I can live with Ben DiNucci, but it's not just that. It's everything else the Buffalo Bills are going to be trotting out there. Chris Brown put out a piece today on BuffaloBills.com. Chris Brown, of course, voice of the Bills. You hear him right before us on One Bills Live with Tasker. Top 5 players to watch. Bills versus Panthers 2024 preseason. Ooh, okay. I could give you 1,000 guesses. It's number 1 player to watch.
Andreessen.
No.
Oh.
No. You have any others that might make the top 5?
Top 5 players to watch.
Yeah.
Keon Coleman.
No. No, he probably won't play.
Oh, you don't think so?
No.
I thought he would get some play. Maybe not. Okay.
Any other guesses?
Starters aren't going to play.
Correct. And none of these guys listed.
Dwayne Carter.
Nope.
Damn it.
No, Carter's made the team. These are 5 guys I would say that are on the bubble, and he doesn't say that in the piece, but that's my takeaway.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay.
Because I'm off.
Number 1, corner to Corey Couch. Okay.
This is where we are?
This is where we are.
Oh. Who's that guy? I don't even remember seeing him at practice.
This is what he writes. He's made some plays on the ball, but his time on the field has been limited in the preseason. That won't be the case on Saturday, and he'll need to make the most of it. Okay.
He can make the most of it all he wants on Saturday. He's not making the team.
We've heard this guy. I remember last year Ryan Talbot pointing this guy out and like, okay.
Richard Garage.
Yes.
Yes.
Garage, I think is how we said. Richard Garage.
Yeah.
Kingsley Jonathan, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's on this team. I don't know. Wide receiver.
He's practice squad, right, Jonathan?
Yeah. Xavier Johnson, wide receiver.
Nah.
Again, like if you couldn't rise above Terrell Shavers in the Fisher portion of
Just
camp.
or shorter. Nah.
Yeah, and then this is an interesting one. After missing parts of the preseason with a rib injury, rookie 5th-rounder Eddie Olafascio.
Oh.
Which tells me he hasn't made the team yet.
5th rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because he's in a battle with Andreessen, right? Like these are 2 guys that are fighting for the same kind of slot.
Here's what I would say about Andreessen, because if he has another 12-tackle game, that's great. You put him on waivers on Tuesday, he's not making any other 53.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of people out there that would push back on that and say that we say that because he's local and he's a fun story, but there might be people out there, there might be scouts out there that view him as a little bit more athletic than I think a lot of people would say just at first blush. He's a real athletic dude. He's a little undersized, but he's a real athletic dude. I mean, you saw him track down Justin Fields on Saturday. Like, that's not a small feat, and you're talking about a guy who played in the MAC last year. I mean,
yeah, one year.
1 year in the MAC.
1 year in the MAC, was a lineman at Lancaster High School.
Yeah.
Section 6, graduated 2018, and here he is. I mean, it's a fun story. I am not ready to hand over a spot in the 53. I certainly keep him around.
You put him on the practice squad if he clears waivers, obviously. But I think there's a fear that if he gets released, that somebody might claim him.
The other one, he didn't even put the Olympian on there.
Oh, Gable Steveson?
Yeah.
That guy is an interesting case. I mean, just go back to our time at Fisher, and I remember watching him specifically, looking at him and being like, he might be physically, of course, he's a freak, right? I mean, he's a gold medal athlete. He's
strong, but he's
undersized.
Undersized,
he's
right?
Undersized for the position. He might be, from a technique standpoint, he might be able to pick it up faster than most because of his hands and his ability to shed blockers with his background in wrestling. But I can't get over him just looking small out there, which is crazy to think from a gold medal heavyweight champion, but he looked small.
Right. So I don't know how the Bills actually do cut down. We've been kind of behind the scenes through the reality show, right, where they bring the player in, somebody knocks on the door, the Turk they call him, coach wants to see you. I would assume they do the same thing with Sean McDermott. Like, somebody will bring, and you got to bring your playbook, and then McDermott tells you why you were being released. Is McDermott welling up when he has to let Gable Steveson go?
Oh, man. No, I think he's keeping him. I think he's finding a way to keep him on the practice squad.
Yes, that's the correct answer.
Yeah. I don't think he's welling up because he knows I'm going to stash you. Nobody else is going to touch you, and you're going to continue here, and we're going to continue to work with you.
We're going to work, and it's a process.
Yep, that's right. I think you heard it in the open. I mean, he loves the culture of guys coming together as a team, working hard together, all for the same goal. I mean, it's so basic and fundamental. It's nauseating, but this is where he is, and this is what he's about. And even if it doesn't happen, even if we don't see it happen, it's what he's preaching, and you hope that it equals wins. Me personally, I like results. I dig talent. I like, if you have talent, you could be a hard worker. I appreciate that. You could have a real compelling story.
Here's what I would say, the player to watch, and it wasn't listed in the top 5 by Chris Brown, and there's a good reason. He really can't promote the other team. I'm watching Bryce Young.
Sure.
Like, if Bryce Young is ever going to look good in this league, it should be tomorrow. Should it not? I want to watch the world on fire. Like, I'm not wishing ill will on Bryce Young, but you
wanted to come out and crash and burn so that Tepper looks even more incompetent than he has as an owner in the NFL up to this point.
To Corey Couch, who intercepted? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was me last night watching the Bears and the Chiefs. Like, I love that you've got nothing but just third and fourth string guys out there. And I try to temper my expectations, but when I see a pick six or when I see a big play, I'm like, it's really great. Too bad I'm never going to hear this guy's name ever again. I'll have to try and remember, that's the guy that had the pick six in the preseason when he gets claimed by another team someday.
Yeah, the running back, Carson Steele.
Oh, that's the guy for Kansas City.
Yeah, 4 carries, 50 yards. I can't do it. You can't.
You don't even know if he's making the team.
It's hilarious, though, the backup quarterback quiz. If you think, oh, my gosh, the Bills are so screwed with Trubisky isn't good anyways. You know who started at quarterback last night?
I do. I forget his name.
Ian Book.
No, Ian Book didn't start. He came in.
Oh, he came in.
Yeah, he came in relief. He was actually the 4th string. Ian Book was the 4th string. The guy that came in the 3rd string, not much better. Do you have his name there?
Chris Oladokin.
Oladokin.
Yeah,
right.
From South Dakota State.
Oh no, not South Dakota State. We need another guy from North Dakota State, just like Carson Wentz, who's backing up Patrick Mahomes. He's such a role model for our children and our grandchildren.
It's just awesome. What made it so awesome?
Just being here. Being away from North Dakota, for us to be here, it's just great.
And to get to see Carson Wentz?
Yes, he's awesome. Such a role model for our kids and grandkids.
Carson Wentz didn't see the field last night. No, it was that guy. It was Chris, South Dakota State.
He's still a role model.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's still. He's not a good teammate from what we hear. Yeah, he wasn't very good last night. He played over a half of football. Wasn't very good. Book came in and was, what you would expect a fourth-string quarterback to look like.
I do see Kadarius Toney had 2 catches.
Kadarius Toney against the Bears' third and fourth-string defense looked like he was dominating. He was getting separation. He was open. He was 7-11. I don't know if he's making that team. I think he's in a battle. Mecole Hardman was out there. He's battling as well.
Who wasn't out there? Xavier Worthy.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah. Just brace yourself. Sometimes fans get it right. And the night that the Chiefs drafted him, we all felt the same thing. Oh, God, we're going to have to hear about this for years to come. You're probably right. They're going to probably feature that guy, and he's going to be open, and Mahomes is going to find him, and it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. Fantasy Friday. Man, I've got fantasy on the brain. First draft out of the way last night. Got another one next weekend, the holiday weekend. We've got our neighbor or our work league, the Radio Geeks League here, the Superflex League, coming up a week from Tuesday. So let's get prepared. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's be smarter football fans when we talk to guys like Drew Loftus of the New York Post and discuss some strategies heading into draft season. He'll be joining us next on The Fan Rochester.
Sports Update.
One more preseason game for the Buffalo Bills. GM Brandon Beane today on One Bills Live says there are some decisions still to be made.
I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled, separate of injury. And then, yes, I'll huddle up with our medical people after this game. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona Week 1.
Pre-game coverage begins at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Bills in Carolina, the 1 o'clock kickoff here on the Fan Rochester. Rochester Red Wings now only a game and a half back in the International League behind Columbus. Wings again tonight playing at Lehigh Valley. Rochester has won 9 of their last 10. All the action in the majors on the lights tonight. The Yankees hosting Colorado. The Red Sox are home against Arizona. The Mets looking to make it 2 in a row. They're out in San Diego. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We're calling today Fantasy Friday. I'm sure there'll be plenty of fantasy football drafts this weekend. It is on the brain. I had my first draft last night. We welcome in one of our favorites from New York Post, Drew Loftus, stopping by the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Happy New Year, Drew. How you been, buddy?
Oh, doing well. My favorite time of the year, absolutely. How about you guys?
Drew, we're playing catch up here. I always feel like we're playing catch up. I always feel like I want to talk to you and other experts, and for our listeners, trying to gather ourselves around what we might have missed or what we might be seeing. You wrote an interesting kind of story recently because there's a lot of different strategies when it comes to fantasy football, and it depends certainly on your format. You could be playing in a super flex, you can be playing in a touchdown only, you can be playing in a guillotine. So with that disclaimer out of the way, some people swear by this, the zero running back theory, meaning I'm going to load up on wide receivers and guys that I know are going to get targets. And inevitably, there's going to be some running back we never heard of that it will pop. And to that team that, waits and identifies those running backs, that's going to be a benefit. Do you subscribe by that theory?
If I ever end up doing zero RB, it is completely by accident. I never go in with that plan. Yeah, that would require you to essentially, if a running back of value slips to you in one of the early rounds, you're going to say, nah, no thanks. I don't want this really good running back. I'm going to get this okay receiver instead, just because you're worried about the risk of injury for running back, essentially. So, no, I'm not going to subscribe to it, but sometimes the draft breaks in a certain way where, the best pick at your spot happens to be a wide receiver. Then the next round, it's another wide receiver. The next round, maybe it's a tight end or something. And next thing you know, you're into this field of running backs that you really don't like, and some of the receivers or quarterbacks or tight ends there you do, and you sort of stumble into what turns out to be a zero RB draft, even if you didn't have a zero RB plan. And if that's the case, I'm okay with it. But when you go in with that plan, then you are opening yourself up to intentionally make a bad decision if a player of value slips to you. And it also doesn't address the fact that if you get deep in the draft and you need to get those hit on those late round running backs, there's no guarantee that's the guy you're going to pick. It might be the guy who picked a backup to one of the good running backs he picked in rounds 1, 2, or 3. There's no guarantee you're going to get that guy. So it also increases the likelihood or the stress that you have to make sure that every single pick you make and every single early season waiver wire acquisition you get, that all those guys hit home runs. And that's really hard to do.
Drew, what's your take on the wide receivers that have been absent from their teams here during the preseason, the CeeDee Lambs, the Jamar Chase, certainly Brendan Ayuk? Are you avoiding at all costs? Are you drafting with caution? How are you treating some of these star wide receivers that have been very, very lucrative for us in the past?
Yeah, I mean, when we've seen holdouts routinely throughout, the past in the NFL, but very rarely do they really bleed into the season. The two examples that stick out in my mind, one of them was more than 20 years ago. It was Emmitt Smith missing the first 2 games in 1993. That's how long ago you have to go back. And then, of course, the one more recently was Le'Veon Bell missing an entire season, and that happened exactly one time that we can think of. Even there was other times in the past, the pre-fantasy, where players had contract holdouts and that type of thing. But, it's really rare that you have this bleed into the season. The worst that maybe you can think of is or at least that I'm planning on, is maybe a week or two of rust or getting back in sync with the teammates and the quarterbacks. Particularly as it applies to CD and Jamar Chase, that those guys, I'm not as worried about them yet. We've still got a week and a half. Like I say, on the average, these things tend to take care of themselves. The one that's a little wrinkle is Brandon Ayuk, because there's still a pretty, a decent possibility that he could get traded. And if that's the case, then that could change, his outlook significantly. If he's not in San Francisco and he's at Pittsburgh or if he's in Washington or if he's somewhere else, then you're looking at a different evaluation. And that's there's a little more uncertainty for Ayuk, I think, than what I consider for Lamb and Chase.
We know some of the top running backs, right? First round, McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. But beyond like the blue chip guys, are there any other running back situations right now you think, my gosh, this guy's actually going to get the lion's share? You really don't have to worry about a handcuff. Those guys really valuable if you can find them, Drew.
Yeah, and really, if you're going to get the lion's share, that's where I want a handcuff, and I'm not a big handcuff guy. But yeah, if you've got a guy like, let's say, a Jonathan Taylor, that time of time, that's when I want a handcuff. Is when that guy who gets the big, huge amount of the carries goes down, that somebody's going to step up behind and sort of absorb that volume, even if he doesn't duplicate the efficiency. But beyond the handcuffs, yeah, the deeper round running backs, I'm looking mostly for volume, and it's nice to have pop, but a lot of the pop guys, are more hit and miss. You really have to have a certain situation, but the volume is the best indicator of scoring opportunities. I like Devin Singletary really late. As a former Bill, did okay in Texas in Houston when Damian Pierce went down or had poor performance. Singletary was okay, and there's not really a whole lot in the Giants' backfield, I think, that's really going to compete with him. So I do think he's going to get the bulk of the carries there, the type of volume at least that you're not often going to find that deep in the draft. So he's one I really like. Another guy who's coming up a little fast on the average draft position is Chase Brown. Zach Moss is fine. He's okay. And if he were to get the kind of volume that people expect, I would be latching on to Zach Brown or Zach Moss. But Chase Brown, I think, is going to eat into that, and I think he's going to be the more explosive runner. So come a few weeks or mid-season, I expect Chase Brown to probably be the guy getting the bulk of the carries for the Bengals.
Drew, this
week,
week,
that's another guy.
This week we heard news that we would get Jaden Daniels starting week 1 for Washington. We would get Bo Nix starting week 1 in Denver. We already knew Caleb Williams was a starter in Chicago. Talk to us a little bit about your take on these rookie quarterbacks and who might be able to provide you some value, given that at least with 2 of these 3 guys, you've got guys that are fairly mobile and that can add a lot to your game as far as their ability to run and score on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that makes Jaden and Caleb both worthy of a pick, particularly if where they're going in the draft. If you're choosing between, say, Caleb Williams, Jaden, I'm going to take Jaden first just because I feel like Washington's going to be a little more desperate, a little more behind more often. So I feel like there's going to be more opportunity for fantasy points, garbage points for Jaden Williams than I do Jaden Daniels than I do Caleb Williams. But both of those guys I like at their draft position, particularly if you're choosing between them and say, Aaron Rodgers I sort of like, but man, that's very iffy with his injury. The fact he's 40 years old, we've never seen him play with this team. It's a defensive-minded coach, so there's some uncertainty there too that doesn't normally exist with a guy of that age. So I'm okay pivoting to one of these younger guys in that position. Or Kirk Cousins, sort of the same idea, and so Brock Purdy is even in that mix. And so these young guys, I'm okay picking them above some of those other quarterbacks. Now, when it comes to Bo Nix, I'm not as interested in drafting Bo Nix, but having seen him in the preseason, it makes me a little more encouraged and less likely to skip over, say, Cortland Sutton in the draft. It makes me feel better about Javonte Williams, who I meant to mention a minute ago in the running backs category. I really like Javonte Williams, who's going to get volume, and he could see the sort of Breece Hall type of rebound that we saw last season with Breece Hall after his ACL injury. We could see that again with Javonte Williams. And with Bo Nix as the quarterback, I've got in what we've seen from him in the preseason, I get a little bit more confident that offense is going to function rather than with Zach Wilson. So it's more of a ancillary boost for some of the other guys with Denver than it is an actual boost for Bo Nix for me that he's going to be the starter.
Drew Loftus, New York Post, our guest, talking some fantasy football here as we kind of bounce around. And this guy isn't a rookie quarterback, but really, he didn't see all that much action. Anthony Richardson, he did not look good last night, to the point where Kirk Herbstreit on the Amazon broadcast a little critical. And I guess, Drew, that's also kind of an angle to this, that sometimes we put a little too much stock into what we see in the preseason. But with that being said here, what is the expectation for Richardson? Because going into draft season, I'm thinking, all right, maybe this is a guy in a super flex I would love to have as QB2, but now I'm not so sure here, that especially if it starts going south, you got Joe Flacco hanging around on the bench.
Yeah, I think it really has to go belly up for them to pull Richardson, a healthy Richardson, and put Flacco in ahead of him. I think that has to be sort of a disaster, and I'm not really expecting disaster. Maybe temper expectations. I'm not sure anybody was really expecting him to blow people away with his passing. It's more about, and for fantasy purposes particularly, more about what he's able to do on the ground and sort of a Cam Newton-esque kind of fantasy existence where he's okay passing. You're hoping he's good at passing, but he doesn't have to be good at passing to be good in fantasy terms. So that's basically what I've been drafting him with, that kind of outlook in mind. And I'm still comfortable. If I'm going to take a quarterback that early, which doesn't happen often, but if you're going to do that, I'm okay with Richardson in that realm, in that 6-7 round type of draft spot. Sometimes he lasts that long, sometimes he doesn't. I'm not going to jump ahead and get him for certain, but and I'm probably going to wait until Dak Prescott would still go for me ahead of Anthony Richardson. But just having watched him in preseason and gotten maybe some that eyebrow tick with this guy doesn't look great. That hasn't really changed my fantasy perspective too much, just because I wasn't expecting him to be lighting it up in the air anyway.
Drew, inevitably here in Western New York, we're drafting with somebody who's a Bills fan, and we call it the Bills tax. A lot of times if you want to get a Bills player, you're going to have to reach. Is there a Bills player not named Josh Allen that you have to have on your roster coming up this season?
I like James Cook, and, going in the third round sometimes, not often, but I've gotten him in the third round. I was surprised when I did, and I felt great about that. In the second round, if you're putting him in there, with I'm not going to put him in the same category as Travis Etienne. I'm going to go with those guys, the Etiennes and above before I go to Cook. But I like Cook when he slips that to the back end of the second or early third round. Beyond that, I like whoever the third Bills wide receiver you take. So if somebody takes Keon Coleman, I'm fine with that. Somebody takes Curtis Samuel, okay, great. Now my eyes are on Khalil Shakir. If it goes in some other order, my eyes are always on the third guy. Because not unlike what you're seeing, what you've got in Green Bay, what you've got in Houston, where there's a lot of murkiness regarding who's going to get what targets, among all these great receivers. Chicago's the same way. I would rather get the third guy, whoever the cheapest one is, the third or fourth guy, and take my chances on that fella, because you're really sort of guessing anyway. We don't know who the guy's going to be, and it's the same way with the Bills. And the good news is all those guys are super cheap, so it's costing you nothing to put them on the roster, but they've got a lot of upside if that happens to be the one that Allen really clicks with. Dalton Kincaid, real quick, I'm a little sketchy on him because I don't think Dawson Knox is going to disappear, so I'm not as high on him as I am some other guys. But when you start getting into that realm with Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson, I really like Kincaid if he lasts that long. He rarely does, but at that point, I really like him. I don't like him as much when he's still up, when he's getting drafted right behind like Trey McBride and those guys.
Drew, there is one thing in fantasy that you and I differ on. I like PPR leagues. I like them. I think they're fun. I know it's not reality. I know it's not even close to real football. But that's fine. I know there's a lot of people that don't like this format, but that's an important thing. Know your league's format before you start drafting. And if you are in a point per reception league, who are some of those players that kind of automatically you should bump up, as opposed like if you're just pulling out a cheat sheet? Hey, you really got to pay attention there, because these are running backs, these are wide receivers that maybe not get in the end zone, but they're going to be fed a lot of balls their way.
Yeah, I've got to admit, yes, I despise PPR, but I also admit that it is overrun. The fantasy community has just embraced it with open arms, and it is everywhere, to the point where I don't even do evaluations for standard scoring anymore, or what used to be standard scoring. I don't even evaluate on that premise. So it's hard, I can sort of guesstimate some guys who get a big bump in PPR, but to tell you the truth, I haven't done the math to speak specifically to that with any good numbers, but I know like Alvin Kamara is a guy who's going to be a lot more valuable in PPR than he would be in standard scoring, just because they don't give him the ball as much as you get for running backs that are going at the same draft spot as he going in the third round. Most of those guys are going to get more carries than he does, but he's going to get more catches than most of them. So that puts him, makes him valuable there, where otherwise he might be a fifth round guy. Derrick Henry is going to be less valuable in PPR than he would be in a standard, because he's going to score more touchdowns and maybe get more yards, but he's going to have almost zero work in the passing game. So that's, if your running back is getting 60 receptions in a season, that's a 60-point advantage he has on Derrick Henry built into your scoring system, I would argue, for no real reason whatsoever. But I argue instead of PPR scoring is to use first downs converted. So anytime a player converts a first down, whether it's by reception, whether it's by a rush, however they convert it, you get a point, rather than scoring for a point per reception, since that's a more attributable stat for making an impact in a game than making a catch is. I've never understood how you can score for making a catch but not score for making for having a carry, since holding the ball is the same regardless.
Drew, it's great having you on. Fantasy season is here. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing at the Post and how we can get more of your work here leading up to draft day.
Oh, super. Thanks. You can find me at NewYorkPost.com. We've got, leading up to the season, in every Sunday paper, we have a draft package with myself and Fantasy Alarms Howard Bender, telling you sort of some draft strategies. This week we're going to be on wide receivers. The past few weeks we've had tight ends, we've had quarterbacks, we have had running backs. And online you can find some extra content, normally themed each week with the position we're covering. And during the season, we'll have pieces in the Tuesday paper and in the Saturday paper, along with any extras that news requires during the week. So come check us out. Also on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram. So love to get some interaction.
Yeah, I have to ask for your real football take here, because we are in Bills country. How much of a threat are the Jets? Have the Jets closed the gap? Are you buying that the Jets will be winning the AFC East this year, Drew?
Winning the AFC East, I think, might be a bit of a stretch. I think that, they're going to gain they're going to gain on the Bills if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. And it looks like the offensive line is actually improved, which you might not be able to say for the Giants. I think they're going to close the gap. How much they close it might be a different question. And I still think that it's a huge, huge hurdle. It's good. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to be Aaron Rodgers MVP, but I do expect him to be good. But I don't expect him to be Josh Allen good. And I think that is still going to be a difference maker for the Bills. And I'm not as worried about Diggs, having lost Diggs, having lost Gabriel Davis. That doesn't bother me as much, because I feel like somebody is going to step up and somebody's going to be there. Diggs was invisible in the second half of the season. Gabe Davis has always been, a feast or famine type of guy. So I don't consider those losses as significant as some other people might. So, I still think the Bills and the Dolphins, I think, are the two that are going to vie for the division title. But I think the Jets are going to be right there in the playoff hunt.
Drew, it's a pleasure having you on with us, man. Enjoy your weekend. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
You got it.
Thanks,
Drew. Drew Loftus, the New York Post, talking some fantasy football here. Fantasy Friday in the Sports Bar.
Yeah, fantastic stuff there. And know your league's format. That is very important going in. What is your favorite format?
Well, I've got to have PPR.
Yeah.
My league last night was a half-point PPR, which is kind of – it just makes things just a little bit more challenging and interesting. You've been in this league. This is the one with the IDP where you have a defensive player as well, and I kind of dig that. I kind of like rooting for a defensive player to get a lot of tackles or to sack.
That's an easy one to add drop to, based on, oh my gosh, I didn't realize the safety was going to be and based on matchup. It's another layer. I love, the IDP stuff. Really haven't dove into all that much.
I mean, I really do like the super flex component that we have here in our work league, where you can start a quarterback in your flex position and do it puts more weight on the most important position in sport. If you get it wrong, it's going to cost you, and if you get it right, you have a chance of competing each and every week. That's a lot of fun. I liked doing the guillotine when we did the guillotine. That was a different and fun format. Although, some people in this room didn't go all the way, weren't able to finish the season. So the early exits were getting a little bit tiresome for at least one person in this studio.
Oh, What are we watching, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I flipped over. I just went on ESPN2. It's Bundesliga soccer, German soccer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were it caught your eye. I know why it caught your eye, because there's somebody set off a smoke bomb.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not fog. It's a smoke bomb.
No. Yeah, this is European soccer at its finest. We got a big delay because you can't see anything because there's smoke bombs all over the stadium.
I'm also watching this, too, maybe they put the flags down during play there, but they have these huge, giant flags. Sometimes you'll see this at a Nighthawk game, which, I love to see the passion, but I'm just wondering for the people that actually bought tickets and, I don't know, want to watch a game?
Yeah. I think the people that are there are just happy to be there, and they don't really, they're so hammered that they really just are excited to be there. We've got to give away some free tickets here before we get to our break. If you're caller 5 right now at 866-4FAN, 866-4326, we'll score you a pair of free tickets to see Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening, which is coming to Kodak Center on December 3rd. Tickets for this show are on sale now. Ticketmaster.com. Again, caller 5, 866-4326. We'll get you a pair of tickets to see Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening, which is coming to Kodak Center on December 3rd. Good luck from the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
Back in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia.
We're going to have more tickets next hour, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So,
if you missed out on your chance to see Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening, which is coming to Kodak Center here on December 3rd, more chances to win coming up. And, again, those tickets on sale. Ticketmaster.com. Our little thank you for listening to the sports bar as we head into your weekend. Man, it's the final weekend of the preseason. I know a lot of fantasy football drafts.
Yeah, and look, if you're trying to, you are a really big Bills fan. If you're going to sit down tomorrow with your jersey on and your snacks and watch Buffalo Bills football, because it's not going to resemble Buffalo Bills football. You're going to be like, who are these guys? But you're going to evaluate positions, right? You're going to be looking for guys. And we talked last hour how Chris Brown is saying, watch out for Kingsley Jonathan. Okay, that's fun, but I don't think Kingsley Jonathan is going to actually be this big contributor. What I want to talk about here is the defensive line, right? There are warts on the defense. You get a good pass rush. It's like having a good quarterback. It covers up for other things that might not be there. But the thing about the pass rush for the Buffalo Bills, and we kind of always say, it's there, but I would love it to be a little bit more. I know Bills fans are hoping that an Ed Oliver or Greg Rousseau gets to double-digit sacks this year, but I found this stat surprising. Last year, he had Leonard Floyd at 10.5. The last time we had somebody on the Buffalo Bills get to double-digit sacks before last year, it was actually Lorenzo Alexander in 2016. Maybe that's because Sean McDermott values the rotation and guys don't get reps. But I'm looking at Greg Rousseau, and I do think Rousseau, barring injury, I think he gets it done this year. He's got a lot to play for. He's going to be getting more snaps for sure in that rotation.
I agree. He's been impressive throughout camp. He was impressive when we spoke to him. He's got a different gear, it feels like, going into this season, and I think Greg Rousseau wants to get paid. And so how do you do that? Well, you go out there and you perform. If you get double-digit sacks, it's going to get the attention of a lot of people, not just in Buffalo, but around the league, and you've arrived. It's just taken a few years. That's the hope, and if that happens, that's great. I'm still concerned about what else you've got going on in that defensive line. That rotation. Von Miller coming in as a specialist, but does he still have it? Will A.J. Epineza be more than what he was last year, which was his best year? You still need him to be more.
Yeah, Daquan Jones.
Can he stay healthy?
Right. These guys break down. That's the problem.
It's interesting. I mean, we watched the preseason, and, admittedly, it's not the best product going. This crossed my feed as I'm just basking in an undefeated preseason for my team, for the Bears.
Why don't you just say 20-0? Why don't we just kind of go there? Keep rolling here.
Yeah. This is the stat. Of the last 29 teams to go undefeated in the preseason, only 35% have made the playoffs. Even better, of the last 28 teams to go winless in the preseason, 43% went on to make the playoffs. You have a better chance if your team goes winless in the preseason of making the playoffs than if your team goes undefeated. So I'm tempering those expectations, Gino, and this is as optimistic as I've been about my team in well over a decade, but it's a sobering reminder. These numbers are just a reminder that the preseason just doesn't matter, and if the Bears lose to Tennessee week 1, you may not be able to get me to crawl out of my hole. If they can't beat Green Bay this season.
Oh, no.
Am I turning into drought-era Bills fan? Am I a drought-era Bills fan in disguise?
Stop. If your expectation is Chicago makes the postseason, no. Your expectation should be, we have our quarterback. Let's see how he comes along.
Can I bump it up to beat Green Bay? Can I just have that expectation?
Okay, once. I'll give you one.
Okay, split with Green Bay?
Split with Green Bay is a good start.
That's a fair expectation.
That's a fair hope.
When the drought-era Bills were happening every year, it felt like this. Oh, we've got a new quarterback, and this is it, and they look like they're doing the right things, and then New England, squashes them. There were some seasons where the Bills competed. There were some seasons where they were just just mediocre. They'd split with New England, or they'd sneak one past.
It doesn't happen at all, though, for the Bears against Green Bay, right?
It's been tough.
Yeah, you don't have your Malloy or Sam Adams big moment. There were. You remember those games for the Bills, but you know why? Because they were very few, and you remember them.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you're going to be fine this year. The Tennessee game may be uncomfortable as long as you get a win at the end of it.
Can't lose to Will Levis week 1. What are we doing?
I haven't picked that game yet.
Ooh.
I on a Friday, I'm in such a good
You're
mood.
picking. I see where you're going.
Wait a second. We got to get back to this. Somehow we got off the wagon the last couple days.
We got off track.
So we've been doing the slow roll of picking week 1 here. And I'm going to give this one. Opening night, less than 2 weeks away, Mike Danger, and this is fantastic. AFC Championship rematch, Chiefs and Ravens. Now, before we get to the breakdown of this game, I think there's one sort of storyline we should retire until further notice here in the sports bar.
What's that?
And it would be my suggestion for every sports fan. The angle, if you bring this back home, finger quote, well, you're a Bills fan. Which team should you root for? Which would it be better for the Buffalo Bills to lose? Stop.
Well, not in week 1.
Well, you could say technically it would be better for the Buffalo Bills. Who do they have a better chance of beating this regular season? The Bills playing the Chiefs at home, the Ravens on the road. I like our chances against the Chiefs at home better than the Ravens on the road. Stop. The Bills aren't going to be vying for the number 1 seed. Can we just kind of let the rest focus on the division, and then when we get to the postseason, should they get the division, we'll deal with the rest later. Back to the game. Kansas City, the line for this game, they're actually giving 3-point favorite Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs have won the last 2 head-to-head. The Ravens on the road are good. They won their last 5 road games to finish out 2023. Maybe this is a trap. But if you're giving me 3 points with Baltimore, I'm going to take those 3 points for Baltimore. And I can't wait to see what Derrick Henry looks like in this offense. Ravens are the pick.
So on a neutral field, this game is a wash.
Correct.
No, I'm going Chiefs.
To cover.
I'm going Chiefs to cover. Yeah, I'm going Chiefs to cover. I just think they have Baltimore's number. Is as electric as Baltimore's offense can look and as magnificent as Lamar Jackson can be, I think Steve Spagnuolo has his number. I think he frustrates him. I think he confuses him. We've seen it. Now we've seen it multiple times. And last year, didn't it feel in the playoffs that Baltimore was the better team? It felt like going into that game, Baltimore's the better team.
But I think the Chiefs' secondary was just off the charts in that game. And Lamar just couldn't. You saw Lamar kind of slam his helmet down. I'm like, oh my gosh, they've lost this game. Yeah. Like when it was still up for grabs. And I'm just going back to what does this look like with Derrick Henry opening game? I go to the Ravens, how they're all calloused and everything else, and their training camps are harder. Will they be better prepared for this game?
I hear you, and I want to be as excited about Derrick Henry and his new surroundings as I think a lot of people are. But I just need to see it, man. Like Derrick Henry is up there now. And yes, he's a specimen. And yes, but there's tread on those tires, man. And how and we've seen this with Baltimore backs time and time again. It's tough to stay healthy in that backfield. So I week 1, yes, it might be magnificent, and nobody's going to want to bring that guy down. But the Chiefs also have Chris Jones. And I just feel like the last time we saw these two teams, the Ravens looked frustrated, defeated, outclassed. Not out-talented, outclassed. I'm going to go with the Chiefs until further notice. I mean, I don't know that there's a team in the AFC that's going to get over on them when it's all said and done. When we get to January and February, I don't know if there's a team that's going to be in the position that the Chiefs are going to be in. I think they're going to three-peat.
Well, listen, I agree with that, and I also know that was the case last year, and the Chiefs lost to a good Lions team on opening night.
Yeah, sure.
Now, granted, Kadarius Toney had a lot to do with that.
I can't get past that it's Chiefs-Ravens. For some reason in my mind, I keep thinking it's Chiefs-Lions again. I don't know why.
For me, I keep thinking it's Chiefs-Texans because that happened a few years ago. And
see, this is what happens when you just win all the time. We can't get it straight. Your NFL kickoffs all blur together, and they all feel the same.
Oh, no. Is this going to happen like what happened in New England where I love Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce? I start listening to his podcast regularly, and I'm just going to become this admirer of the Chiefs.
The only NFL kickoff game with the Chiefs that still that stands alone, that doesn't blur. There are no blurry lines. It wasn't even their opening. It wasn't even their home game. It was the Patriots game. You remember that game, right, Gene?
There's no suspense this week. We're going to get it out of the way.
There's only one game really.
Friday, we will be crowing. Roll the tape, Mike Danger. Week 1, your pick. Roger Goodell is going to face 80,000 enemies that Thursday night. Can you envision any scenario where the Kansas City boring Chiefs and the Beige Impala go in to Foxborough? It's not happening. You take your best bet week 1 and you let somebody else screw up. You let the Bears nip the Falcons. You let the Browns shock the world. One of those games is going to happen. I'm going to tell you which one's not. That's going to be New England. New England is your week 1 survivor pick. Book it now. You'll thank me on Friday.
Gene Battaglia.
That was fun.
I thought we got rid of that.
I'm sorry.
You told me you burned that. You told me you disposed of that. It's incredibly dated. And you know what? Quite frankly, it makes me look bad. So
the Kansas City boring Chiefs. From that moment, they've gone on to win 3 Super Bowls. The Kansas City boring Chiefs. That was the last year of Alex Smith starting for the Kansas City boring Chiefs.
Right, and the Beige Impala.
And who was their running back that for
Kareem Hunt.
It was Kareem Hunt, right.
Yep.
It was Kareem Hunt's first game. He was a rookie, never fumbled. That was the big thing. Guys never fumbled. Through entire careers, never fumbled. First rush of the game against the Patriots, fumbles.
But then Andy Reid sticks
with him. And they win the game in Foxborough, the Kansas City boring Chiefs. That game doesn't have any blurred lines. That game stands alone.
No, funny, like I can remember that game. And I remember the Patriots actually retook the lead in the fourth quarter. I'm like, phew, okay, that was a sweat. And then they just laid down, and then I just look at my phone, and I every day I come into work early. That day I think it was at 2:59 p.m. I came in and pretended like, okay, Danger's not going to say anything,
man.
not going to know anything.
We're about accountability here in the sports bar. We don't get it right all the time. It's fine. We fall on our face, we get back up, dust yourself off, get back in the game. I can't wait for Survivor Football. Can't wait for your weekly picks. I can't wait for you to sing, to come up with songs for every...
Songs we... I just get excited, you know.
Speaking of the Patriots, I don't know if you saw this or not, Gino. There's a new rule in the NFL that could see Bill Belichick in the Hall of Fame by the year 2026. Now, previously, head coaches had to wait, be out of the game for 5 seasons before they could be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, this new rule announced today by the league, coaches only have to be out of the game for 1 season before they're eligible for Hall of Fame selection. The selection process for next season, 2025, has already begun, so Belichick won't be eligible to be inducted next summer, but he will be eligible for the class of 2026 if he doesn't get another coaching job before then. Now, it's also possible that Belichick could get selected to the Hall of Fame after the 2025 season and then be hired to be a head coach again for the 2026 season, which would result in a Hall of Fame coach actively coaching and pacing the sidelines. Under this scenario, Gino, I still win the bet. If Belichick is hired by another team this next offseason, that resets the clock. No. It resets the clock on when he would be Hall of Fame eligible again, and I'm feeling better about my chances with each passing day.
Okay, couple of thoughts on this. Thought 1, well, why do they have like the 5-year wait anyways? It's to avoid embarrassment. Darren Sharper being the guy, Hall of Fame player, hey, let's vote him in. Then you find out, oh my gosh, in the last check he was in jail, right? Like bad guy. So like for anybody with character concerns that you didn't know about, give it half a beat. 5 years, totally fine with that. But this isn't directed at Belichick per se, but it's a little morose. I'm going to just kind of admit that right now.
You want to get guys in before they die.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, he would be 79. If he comes back next year, he'd be in his 80s. What is the average life expectancy? I want all these guys to get in while they're alive. I think that's why the Hall is like doing this right now. Pete Carroll falls under this window. Pete Carroll is in his 70s too, and yes, he's a very healthy man, but do we need to make him wait? No, let him enjoy this while he's still with us.
Yeah, somebody got to somebody at the NFL and said, hey, if you want these guys to accept the speech and be coherent while they're giving their acceptance speech, we should probably bump this up.
Wouldn't you want that guy? Why don't they still have that guy David Baker come up and he
That's
shows
the big dude, right?
The big dude. He's retired now, but he would come up and say, thank you, Coach Cowher, for everything.
I feel like I didn't know about that guy until just like the last few years of his time with the Hall.
Yeah, and when they would surprise these greats, and then you see Jimmy Johnson
breaking
in
down.
tears. Would Belichick break down into tears? Or just be like, oh, thank you. When is it?
Gotta check my schedule.
No, meet Jordan. This is David Baker. He runs the Hall of Fame.
Jordan gets swallowed by David Baker. He's just a mammoth human being. Just dwarfs David Baker. I don't know. I saw that news today. I'm like, all right, I know exactly what they're thinking here. I know exactly why they're doing this, and I feel better about my chances of Bill Belichick being a Hall of Fame coach in 2026 after not accepting a job to be a head coach in 2025. Don't want to reset that clock. Why would you reset the clock? Just take your accolades. Don't go back in the league. Pinot Noir. Lush.
No.
Dark purple box.
No, I will, because I'm such a great husband, I will let the executive producer decide which brand, which vintage. What do you, yeah.
No, I have a specific request. I want Pinot Noir. Don't come at me with rosé or any of your white stuff. I don't drink that. Give me
No, but I'm saying you're not going to win. It's not relevant to what you want.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll see. We'll see, pal. We've got Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy Friday continues here. He's going to be joining us here in about 15, 20 minutes or so. You can join us as well at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN. More next as we get you ready for the preseason finale. The Buffalo Bills and the Carolina Panthers tomorrow here on the Fan Rochester.
WNBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Breaking news concerning the Rochester Red Wings. Grant Paulson from Odyssey sister station 106.7 The Fan in Washington reporting that top prospect Dylan Cruz is going to get the call up to the Bigs as the Washington Nationals will be taking on the Yankees on Monday. Cruz to stay with the Red Wings this week. Wings tonight once again at Lehigh Valley. Tomorrow, one more preseason game for the Buffalo Bills. GM Brandon Beane today on One Bills Live says he's exploring options on the wire next week.
You got to assume that someone could come out there, veteran or on the waiver wire. Now, again, if it's a really good player on the waiver wire, where we're at, the odds of us getting him is not very high. If it's a veteran, though, those guys can choose wherever. So we will definitely monitor all that and see where we can fill in some of these depth spots.
Pre-game coverage today begins at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Bills in Carolina, the 1 o'clock kickoff. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Overall, as a team, been very impressed with how hard these guys work. Not that I didn't expect them to work hard. It is part of our culture. They work hard and they're focused as a team.
Even with the Panthers playing starters, to worry about that on Saturday.
Mike Danger.
It's Mike Danger versus Mike Danger. The salary cap is a myth versus with that much dead cap, it's difficult to field a competitive team. Not wrong.
He's got you there.
Don't get inside my head, man. It's a treacherous place. I just don't like teams that carry as much dead cap as the Bills. It really, really bothers me.
Gene Battaglia.
So can I tell my side of the story here?
Sure, Gene. Tell your side of the story.
Hey, do you know Danger's got a favorite team in college football, and it's not Penn State? He's a Florida State fan. And no, that's not Misfidian of me.
Misfidian.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We welcome you back into Fantasy Friday in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yeah.
Getting you ready for your fantasy football season. Drew Loftus, New York Post, was our guest last hour, and we're just a few minutes away from checking in with our buddy Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy, who was booting up my draft room last night in my first redraft league. There's Andy telling me I can't screw up pick 5. He's like, you're in a great spot. Pick 5 is where you want to be. Can't screw it up. I'm listening to the pre-recorded Andy Behrens telling me that I can't screw up, and I hope I didn't screw up, Gene.
Yeah. That news item, I can't wait to talk some fantasy football with Andy Behrens there. Funny how, like, when we get to the Amerks Post, he's like, yeah, get us the cup. For the Red Wings, do we ever have discussions like, hey, this is a team that could make the postseason, or how are they? Doesn't seem like that registers with us here in this town. And maybe that's just true of minor league sports, but I think it's worth just a minute here just to say, wait a second. Like, with this format, it's like the 1981 baseball season. If you're not familiar with the playoff format of the minor league baseball, they've done a split season. So in the second half of the season, it's just all the teams. How many are there? 16? They just go into one division. Right now, the Red Wings are in second, only a game and a half behind Columbus. And then I should even know who is the first, who won the first half. I don't know. It wasn't the Red Wings. But if the Red
Does
Wings,
it even matter who wins the first half?
No. Well, that's who the Red Wings would play.
Oh, so the winner of the first half plays the winner of the second half?
Yeah.
Oh.
So wait a second. We could actually be having postseason Rochester Red Wings baseball?
Wait a minute. I'm trying to figure this format out. I know that we've talked about this before, and it always – so what if the same team wins the second half that won the first half?
That we don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's a rule somewhere that they would go with the second team.
This is bananas. So it's win or else. If they don't finish in first, then it doesn't matter. There's no consolation.
Yeah.
If they finish a game behind the first place team for the second half of the season, it doesn't matter. The first place team of the second half of the season plays the first place team for the first half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So by winning the first half of the season, you're guaranteed a spot in AAA baseball's final for the Governor's Cup.
Yep. So it was Norfolk, so the affiliate of the Orioles.
They won it all last year.
Yep, and they won the first half this year.
I know they won it all because this is one of the markets that I my regional responsibilities.
Hey, Reed!
Yeah, my regional responsibilities for Odyssey have me in Virginia, and Norfolk is one of those markets. And when I tell you that when I heard that they won, I brought it up to the local team there. I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? That's a big deal. Like, what do you mean, what are we doing? Like, what, no parade, nothing? Like, yeah, we're happy for them. It's great. But I'm like, okay, never mind. It just doesn't matter as much. I mean, like
No.
it would. I think as a community here, knowing how important the Red Wings are to the fabric of Rochester, like I think we would get behind that.
We did not have a parade the last time they won. I know the last time they won.
97.
That's right. Was that your first year here?
It was my first year here.
First year here. And it was exciting. It was a Sunday night. And the station I was working at, this is a true story. We needed to get to, like that night it was Giants, Washington, the Sunday night NFL game. And people were calling in to complain, go over to football.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, wait a second. Like, can we actually just kind of finish this up here? The team won
Wow.
the championship. I was just kind of stunned that night that people, and granted, 1997, you had only two ways to get the game, TV or radio back then. If the Red Wings got to the postseason and played North, I think we would be totally into that. Well, I'm bringing this up because just learned Grant Paulson reporting that Dylan Cruz getting the call up, which should not be surprising, but I would just say, all right, well, is there enough here to actually get this done and get the Red Wings over the top? And would people actually be coming out that last week of the season? The Red Wings in September host Iowa. Iowa's long going to be out of it. So would there actually be something on the line that third week in September?
Well, I tell you, Dan Mason, if anybody knows how to promote the product, it's Dan Mason. And if there's something to be had for the Red Wings, then I'm sure we'll hear about it, and it will be something that I would imagine would galvanize us as a community, as a sports community. We would want to be out there. We would want to support the Red Wings in their endeavor to score a Governor's Cup. And I guarantee we would be more excited about it than our friends in Norfolk were because, hey,
they wouldn't even
like, oh, yeah, well, okay, great.
Well, good. Look, then where do your loyalties lie, Mr. Reeves, if it ends up being Rochester, Norfolk, and the international?
Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Stop it.
Then you need to trash talk your Norfolk
Didn't you just hear me do that?
Yeah.
You just hear me say, like, it went over like a fart in the wind. They didn't even, oh, yeah, well, we're happy for him. I'm like, wait a minute. You have a championship team there. Yeah, well, AAA baseball. All right, well, it's a bigger deal here, I guess, than it is down there. Maybe they got more going on. I don't know. Norfolk's been around. That team's been around forever, right?
Forever. They were a Mets affiliate.
Yeah, the Tides have been around forever. Andy Barron's stopping by next. He's Yahoo Fantasy. He's the face that you see when you inevitably, if you're on Yahoo, log into your draft room for the first time. He'll tell you why your pick is a good spot or why your pick might be a challenging spot. And we're going to just pick his brain because a lot of drafts are happening this weekend. A lot of drafts are happening in the next couple of weeks. Of course, NFL kickoff is now less than 2 weeks away. So you're getting your ducks in a row. You're getting ready for your redraft leagues. You're getting ready to field a championship team. Andy Behrens is going to stop by the sports bar and set us all straight with his advice next on The Fan.
You're listening. On the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Little peek behind the curtain is a true story. Last night, I'm settling down in the basement. I've got a little tumbler of brown liquid, firing up my computer, get to the draft room on Yahoo, and then just moments before the draft is set to get underway, as is annual tradition, our next guest shows up and tells me why I'm in a good spot picking number 5. And I'm like, Andy, I want to believe I'm in a good spot. Buddy, tell me I'm in a good spot at 5, because I feel like I could still screw it up, even though I'm in a good spot at 5. We welcome in Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy back into the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Andy, how's your summer been?
Oh, it's great. I want you to know, first of all, that those videos are crafted for you personally.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that everybody saw. That was just for you.
Thank you.
I know the user base very well, and I record zillions of individual videos.
Andy, there's so many questions we could ask you here, but you were kind of curious about the Bills receiver position. If we could start here, and this has been my take overall, and I know there might be a little bit of a flaw in my logic here, but Khalil Shakir, if you took the last 7 games last year, and why I say 7, that's when they made the offensive coordinator switch. They win 6 games in a row to finish out the season. The one loss was that crazy loss in Philadelphia where they put up some points. If you took those numbers and you put that across an entire season, well, Shakir is top 10 in some categories, top 15. He looks like a number 1 receiver, and I'm saying, well, if he can hold up, why not? Why wouldn't he be the guy that Josh Allen would kind of rely on? But you're the expert. How would you kind of view what you see here on the Buffalo Bills receiving corps?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that I think it's actually one of the most interesting receiving corps in the league. Certainly for fantasy, obviously, because we're talking about a group of receivers that's tied to the overall QB1. So right there, we care about it. The thing that I find most interesting is that everybody's a slot receiver, right? And the math doesn't work for that, right? Like Shakir, slot receiver. Dalton Kincaid, fundamentally a slot receiver. He's kind of one of those tight end and name only guys who's not burdened with any of the traditional tight end responsibilities. Curtis Samuel is a slot receiver. My colleague Matt Harmon has made a very convincing argument to me that someone with Keon Coleman's exact profile,
yes,
is best used as a big slot. That's clearly not going to happen.
Yes.
But I love Keon Coleman. Like he has been an absolute delight. And if there's one guy who's not a Bear who I am rooting for to be a star, it is Keon Coleman. He is an absolute delight. Love everything that he says. Love the energy. Love it all. They're all slot receivers, right? You can only have 2 on the field at one time. So it's a weird receiving corps. It's a weird collection of receivers. But as you guys know, there's like 240 vacated targets in Buffalo, and they're Josh Allen targets. We really care about that. The guys that I have actually been drafting, to some extent, the Curtis Samuel injury settled this. Shakir, you already named. Shakir is somebody who you'd like to see somebody who's that efficient. We really care if they can do it on 100 targets, not like relatively low volume like you saw last year. But I am a believer. Again, it's probably got to come in the same way that he was used last year and from the same spots on the field. He was not a downfield target for them, right? Very low ADOT, except that he was terrific after the catch. Like, great player. I think that Khalil Shakir, I might get the numbers wrong here, but I want to say that among all wide receivers who saw at least like 40 targets last year, he had the highest passer rating when targeted in the league, which, so that's a pretty impressive sample.
Yeah, he doesn't drop the ball. That's
at all.
Great
yeah,
hands,
yeah. And a huge yards after catch guy too. So like the yardage and the targets really didn't sink for what like his role was, right? It was over 600 yards on a relatively low target total. Kincaid is the guy that I have probably drafted the most. And I think that's the one place where we really have, like, first of all, he's so easy to pair with Josh Allen in fantasy drafts, right? You can take Josh Allen in the 3rd, maybe not in drafts in your area, but in the rest of the world, you can take him in the 3rd round, and then you get Kincaid like 3 rounds later. And I think there's a non-trivial chance that Dalton Kincaid leads all tight ends in targets and catches this year. I think that is very much in play given the sort of volume that is available to that receiving room.
So let's talk a little bit about that since you brought up Kincaid. It feels this year that tight end is a lot deeper than it's been in years past. It always, I mean, we're dating ourselves talking about, when it was Gronk and Kelsey, and then Gronk fades away and it's Kelsey and Andrews. And now it feels like you can go pretty deep into tight end and still find production. And it starts with your guy there in Laporta in Detroit.
Well, if you want to talk about dating yourself, I'm about to do it. I think the tight end position this year is so interesting, and one of the most interesting things about it is that we're in this like transitional year because Travis Kelce turns 35 this season. We saw a little bit last year of I don't want to call it complacency, but we saw a little bit of that thing that teams do and great players do when they're in the middle of a season and they know they're going to be there at the end, where like there's just a little rust in the middle of the season. Like it wasn't all pretty for Travis Kelce in the middle of the year. And then of course he was great when they needed him. And I think at age 35, we may be coming to a point in his career where the seasons are good, but they're not like transcended. They're not like, shattering the expectations for the position kind of good. I think we might be getting there, which means it's wide open. And it's not just Sam Laporta. It's, in my view, it's obviously you have Mark Andrews there, you have George Kittle there, but you've got Dalton Kincaid, an incredibly interesting player in a great situation. You've got Kyle Pitts that we're kind of still waiting on. Like you can make an argument for Trey McBride was fantastic last year. So you can make an argument for any of like 6 or 7 guys. You can kind of squint a little bit and see the path to them finishing as the tight end one. And the crazy thing is historically, like we can take this back 60 years. You look at the history of the position, there's always one dominant receiving tight end. Before Kelsey, it was Gronk. Before Gronk, we had Antonio Gates, we had Tony Gonzalez. Yeah. We had, Ben Coates before that for like a 3 or 4 year run. You can like Todd Christensen, Kellen Winslow. You can take this back to Ditka, right? There is always one guy who is just destroying the rest of the tight ends in terms of receiving production. And I feel like the changing nature of the game is addressing this. Like I mentioned the fact that Dalton Kincaid, I don't even mean this as slander because this is a lot of teams do this. It's the same situation with like Mark Andrews. We aren't asking these guys to pass block, right? Like if we're dropping back, they are running a route. It's just not exactly the traditional tight end position that they're playing. Kittle's a bit of an exception because they run behind him a lot. The Lions were running behind Sam Laporta a lot, but for the most part, these guys are just really big slot receivers. And that's created more opportunity for more tight ends to have the kind of volume that you need to finish as the tight end one overall.
Let me ask you a follow-up on the tight end just quickly, Andy, because we're talking about Dalton Kincaid or you're talking about a Mark Andrews. With these teams that like to run the 12 personnel and you have a Dawson Knox or an Isaiah Likely, does that give you pause before selecting one of these guys as you're drafting?
No, well, especially with Andrews, because we've seen over many years now, we've seen the rapport between Andrews and Jackson. Andrews already has a 1,300-yard season to his credit, so we know that if he's like healthy, fully functional, in an offense that is passing more than they have in Baltimore in a while, like he's in a great situation. But I love that you hit on Isaiah Likely, because the key thing with Isaiah Likely, and that's just a great name to file away as like a final round pick in fantasy drafts. I wouldn't even normally tell people to draft like a second tight end, but Likely is someone who, if anything happens to Andrews, not hoping it does, but if anything happens to Andrews and he can't play, we have already seen Isaiah Likely put up exactly Mark Andrews numbers. Like he was, final 6 games last year, he scored 5 touchdowns, over 300 receiving yards. It was one of those stretches where like if you prorate it, he's a top 3 fantasy tight end. That could be him. Like if he falls into the right workload, he is an absolute set it and forget it tight end 1, no question about it. Knox isn't exactly that same way, but he's such a circle of trust player for Josh Allen. I think he's going to be. I know I already touted Dalton Kincaid, but I do think Knox is going to be a pretty significant nuisance to Dalton Kincaid managers, right? Because there's just such rapport between Knox and Allen. It's pretty easy to see how Dawson Knox can finish again with like 6-7 touchdowns.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy, is our guest. Andy, we'll ask you about the rookie quarterbacks, but I want to ask you about another rookie, one that Yahoo has ranked 17th overall. How do you come down? Where do you come down on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Marvin Harris, we're a little more in tune here because Arizona comes up to Buffalo week 1, and I could see this actually kind of going poorly for the Buffalo Bills secondary. But trusting a rookie with a late first round, early second round pick, what's your opinion on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Well, first of all, like how many, this basically started in 2014, the season in which, Mike Evans broke out and Odell Beckham broke out. Like, it's pretty routine now for one or more rookies to be not just fantasy relevant, but oftentimes among the most important and most impactful fantasy players in the game. And that, you think of Jamar Chase's first season and Justin Jefferson's first season. And you just have to ask yourself whether you think Marvin Harrison Jr. is that kind of talent. And I listen, I thought Harrison Jr., I thought Odunze and Neighbors were almost flawless receiving prospects. And if they just landed in situations where we trusted the quarterback and the volume was a near certainty, like Marvin Harrison Jr. is pretty clearly going to finish as like a top 15 fantasy receiver. I don't know exactly where he comes in, but there wasn't, I will say he struggled a little bit against Notre Dame and they had a good secondary, but like there's no other, like he faced all of the best defenses in college football basically. And he thrived in all the situations. Great against Michigan, just a great player. He's got size, got speed, he's got it all. And we think he's stepping into a situation in which he's going to see 130 plus targets. So it's if you do projecting, and you do that projecting based on what you think the offense is going to be as a whole and where you think the targets are going to go, it's just really difficult not to give Marvin Harrison Jr. like 1,200 or 1,300 yards in a healthy season. So that's why he comes in there. Now, I would understand anybody who looks at like Mike Evans and Marvin Harrison Jr. next to each other, and they're like, man, Mike Evans just gave me 13 touchdowns and 1,200 yards, and he does it every year. Fine, take him. But I do think Harrison Jr. belongs in that conversation.
Hey, along those lines, Andy, and I know the preseason is you don't ever really want to overreact to anything in the preseason, but you do see moments in the preseason.
Bears fans do. I'm going to interrupt you right there and tell you that Bears fans, are willing to overreact.
I know, and I'm kind of smitten with our guy. I mean, it's an undefeated preseason, and Caleb looked good when he was out there. I was actually going to ask about the Bears' opponent last night in the preseason. We didn't get to see Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy, but we did see them in week 3 of the preseason connect on a deep pass where Worthy looked like there wasn't somebody around him for 5 yards. He looked so wide open.
Yeah.
And, of course, here in Western New York, everybody is looking at that guy as, oh, that's the guy that we traded to the Chiefs, and we're going to have to live with this pain moving forward. Does Worthy have that same kind of clout to you in that offense? Is somebody that looks for offenses that you want to invest in, and Chiefs certainly be one of those offenses, is Worthy worth that pick in the middle rounds?
Oh, well, I don't think there's any question that he's worth a pick. The problem for Worthy is going to be, when Hollywood Brown is back. When Hollywood Brown is back, they may serve a little bit of the same purpose. I do think that Worthy is going to have some splash plays. For a guy who seems like he'd be just the perfect vertical threat, he wasn't always that in college, but he is obviously a burner. He is one of the fastest men in the league. We've certainly seen him get open with ease in the preseason. We know that he's tied to a quarterback who will 100% of the time find you if you get open deep. So that's not a worry. So we're drafting Xavier Worthy for the same reason that we're going to be taking flyers on like the Chiefs number 3 and 4 receivers for the next 12 or 15 years. I mean, they're just tied to the right quarterback. It is a much better receiving core this year. And that's not just about the Worthy pick. That's, assuming that Rashee Rice is a terrible assumption, but maybe not suspended this year. If that doesn't happen, if that waits until 2025 and they've got him all year and they've got Kelsey, and now you add Hollywood Brown to that, if he gets healthy, like that is a much more dangerous receiving core than what they had last year. So you can it's hard for me to, I just talked about how it's very difficult to project Marvin Harrison Jr. for less than 1,200 yards. It's really difficult to project Patrick Mahomes for less than 4,800 passing yards this season.
Yeah, Andy, we ask you this question every year because teams that will have good offenses, if you can kind of get a piece of one of those, we certainly know the Chiefs, we can pencil in the Lions. Who else would be on that list?
Yeah, the Texans are clearly on that list, and they would not have been at the start of last year, right? You might have been running away from the Chiefs or from the Texans, but everything we saw from C.J. Stroud, the fact that they had Diggs, whatever Diggs has left, and that's a discussion, right? Like you guys saw up close and personal. You saw his back half last year wasn't great, but he's still better than most starting NFL receivers. And then they had Joe Mixon, like they're pretty loaded. Like that's pretty clearly a team that can challenge for 28, 30 points per game. They might be the most interesting. Green Bay is in that discussion, but Green Bay is one of those teams that has that is, as a Bears fan, super annoying to me, but they probably have the deepest receiving core in the league, right? Like you can go guys deep, not even the tight ends, and I would trust any of them on the field for my football team. Dontavian Wicks looked great. Bo Melton looked great. And, they go so deep. And then they got two good tight ends, too. The problem with the Packers is the only safe way to invest in that receiving core is to actually just get Jordan Love. I can make an argument for you that Christian Watson, given his healthy camp, healthy preseason, that's all a really good sign. If anybody breaks out, it's probably him. But Jordan Love is the safest way to invest there.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy, is our guest here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. All right, so we knew that Caleb was going to start week 1 for the Bears. We learned this week that Jaden Daniels is going to start in Washington. We learned that Bo Nix is going to start in Denver. Talk to us about how you're dealing with these rookie quarterbacks, and certainly Daniels and Williams have a different element at play than most rookie quarterbacks. And are you treating Anthony Richardson as if he's a rookie quarterback, knowing that in his second season here, we could actually see him develop into what we thought he would be last year, or what he's on his way to being last year?
Oh, man, there's so much there. That's such a loaded question. The first thing I'll say is that I've got Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels ranked back to back, and I consider them both very strong candidates to finish inside the top 10 at the position this year. Daniels, the case is easy, right? He's a proactive rushing quarterback, and that is a trait that we look for. Like it would not, if Daniels just remains healthy all season, it would be no surprise if he rushes for 650, 750 yards. That's a huge advantage. So he's obviously in the fantasy conversation. With Williams, we've just never seen a quarterback, or almost never seen a quarterback drafted first overall who steps into a turnkey situation like this, where you've got, two great veteran receivers, one exciting rookie receiver, two good tight ends, one of the best receiving backs in the league, an ascending offensive line. Everything is set, and he's passed the eye test in the preseason too. So we like Caleb. I will say about Bo Nix that what a comfort it must be to an NFL front office and a fan base when the rookie first round quarterback just comes out and wins the job, which is exactly what's happened there, right? I'm not going to say that I was super excited about Bo Nix coming into the season, but and again, his competition wasn't stiff. It was Zach Wilson, it was Jarrett Stidham. But man, he looked good. He completed, I want to say it was 23 of 30 passes, some of them downfield too, not all the usual Bo Nix stuff. He's got some rushing upside. So he's if you're in a super flex league, you're in a 2-quarterback league, I think Bo Nix is pretty interesting. And then the last guy you ask about, Anthony Richardson, he's a little wild because he's almost gotten overdrafted at this point, right? There's so many people planting flags on Anthony Richardson as the potential QB1 overall, which I agree with. You can see the path. He could give us a huge rushing total. He could certainly be one of those guys who gives us a dozen rushing touchdowns. He has serious Cam Newton vibes. There's just other people in that conversation as well. I can't give you a convincing argument that he should be drafted in a different area of your standard fantasy draft than Kyler Murray. I mean, I think Kyler Murray, the argument is the same. It's a great receiving core. He's a great rushing threat. And we like everything about the coaching environment, the team context. So I think Anthony Richardson is in that conversation. But you saw I don't know if you saw any of that preseason game last night. that was the whole roller coaster ride that we might get with Richardson, right? He threw touchdowns to each team, which, not great. But the receiving core is good, and he's got rare rushing ability.
Yeah, I love Washington for the fact that, that stink of the previous ownership is gone. Everything is kind of new and shiny here. We get this report today, and I have Brandon Ayuk fatigue here. I think we all do. Like, I wish he would just pick a place and, be done with it here. But, how would you evaluate Ayuk depending on where he ends up? I think we're still assuming he's going to be week 1 with the Niners, right, Andy?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I would handicap that as the most likely scenario, but you have, pre-existing rapport between Jaden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk. They clearly, they cleared a spot. Like they do not have a dangerous number 2 receiver right now, or, I think the world of Terry McLaurin. I think he's a really good player, but like their number 2 receiver right now is De'Ami Brown, who, fine, interesting deep threat, not somebody that we want to be feeding 90 targets to, 100 targets to. So there's just a spot waiting for Brandon Ayuk, and they add a 3rd-round pick, which theoretically that, is more draft capital to throw at a trade. So I feel like that, they're the most likely destination for him. It's probably what Ayuk himself would want, all things being equal. So we'll see. I've still got kind of a placeholder rank on Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I think he's great. And I wouldn't mind seeing him go to an environment where he's going to get more than, I think you'd pencil him in San Francisco for like 100 targets, low passing volume, high efficiency. He could go to Washington and he could emerge as the number 1 by mid-season, and finish the year with like 125, 135 targets. That's not a bad place.
Andy, it's not lost on this fantasy player and broadcaster that you not only get the custom version of Andy Behrens telling you how great your pick is when you go into the draft, everything feels fresh and new with Yahoo this year for fantasy football. The app feels like it's redesigned. It looks different. It pops a little bit. Talk a little bit about what you guys have been working on, and of course how we can get more of your work here through the season, because it's valuable and we love it.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah, there is a redesigned app. That stuff is always funny because there's always people out there who, like, if you change the font on something, there's a certain type of fantasy manager who's just going to rage. But I have found it really useful. I think it looks good. So there's a new app out there for you. We're now deep into obviously draft season, so we are podcasting every day of the week, the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. That's been going on. We started up a newsletter, so there's a lot of ways to receive our content now. The newsletter is being written by myself and Scott Pianowski. That's been really fun. So, yeah, and obviously we have a full draft kit for you on Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, and then Fantasy Football Live then, too. That's coming back, right?
Fantasy Football Live is going to be Thursdays and Sundays this year. They're getting so much work out of me this season. It's absolutely ridiculous.
You're going to wring you dry, and you're not going to have anything left for the Bears season. I mean, we got to have a little bit of juice for the Caleb Williams rookie campaign.
That's okay. I'll tune into the Bears season when it's January and we're in playoff mode.
All right. So realistic expectation here, Andy, because Gene and I were talking about this earlier, and I don't want to overreact to the preseason. Like you said, Bears fans have a tendency to do that. Just beat Green Bay. Is that a fair expectation? Just beat Green Bay.
Yeah. Let's try splitting with Green Bay.
I take a split.
Okay. Like with that, let's just get the home and home thing down with Green Bay. That would be fine. I think they're both exciting teams. I think the Lions are an exciting team. I think that, I think the Vikings are a quarterback away from being a really dynamic team. So the division has rarely been this good. And they're all those teams have some key pieces that are really, really young. So it seems like, the NFC North could be really frisky for a while.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy. We're going to be reading and listening, just taking in a lot of your work here as we're cramming. Andy, thanks so much for the time today.
It's a pleasure talking to you guys again. Let's do it again soon.
You got it, buddy. We'll do it for sure. Andy Behrens at Yahoo Fantasy joining us here to give you some fantasy advice. Fantasy Friday. We're just talking fantasy football today. I get the first draft out of the way last night, Gino, and I felt like Nicolas Cage in that, the meme that goes around where the wind is blowing through his hair. He's taking his first breath of fresh air out of jail or whatever he was from that movie. All I could think that was how I felt last night. I'm like, we're back. We're so back. We are so back. Love it. And I appreciate Andy giving us some time and setting us straight.
Andy's the best, and gosh, got to check him out. And we're gonna have him on. We're gonna work out the details.
Through the season.
Through the season, yeah.
Yeah, love that. And he's very gracious with his time to join us here on the Fan. Happy Hour is on the way next in the Sports Bar. We got a couple of things to get to. We saw a little bit of breaking news on a former Buffalo Bill that just crossed my feet. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No. Okay.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
But more than anything, want to get you ready for the preseason finale. Brendan Bean speaking to the guys at One Bills Live today. We'll get into all of that and more next with Happy Hour. Your calls are welcome at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
660 AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
One more preseason game for the Buffalo Bills. GM Brandon Beane today on One Bills Live, saying that there are going to be some decisions to be made.
I can't sit here and say I know what the 53 is. That's not accurate. There's still some things to be settled, separate of injury. And then, yes, I'll huddle up with our medical people after this game. We'll run through where everyone's at and make sure that we have the right team ready for Arizona week 1.
Pre-game coverage begins at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Bills in Carolina, the 1 o'clock kickoff here on the Fan Rochester. The Red Wings now only a game and a half back of first place. Columbus in the International League. Some news today as Grant Paulson from 106.7 The Fan in Washington reporting that Dylan Cruz will be called up to Washington on Monday. Red Wings once again in Lehigh Valley tonight. Yankees hosting Colorado. The Red Sox are home against Arizona. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Overall, as a team, been very impressed with how hard these guys work. Not that I didn't expect them to work hard. It is part of our culture. They work hard and they're focused as a team.
Even with the Panthers playing starters, to worry about that on Saturday.
Mike Danger.
It's Mike Danger versus Mike Danger. The salary cap is a myth versus with that much dead cap, it's difficult to field a competitive team. Not wrong.
He's got you there.
Don't get inside my head, man. It's a treacherous place. I just don't like teams that carry as much dead cap as the Bills. It really, really bothers me.
Gene Battaglia.
So can I tell my side of the story here?
Sure, Gene. Tell your side of the story.
Hey, do you know Danger's got a favorite team in college football, and it's not Penn State? He's a Florida State fan. And no, that's not Misfidian, okay?
Misfidian.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Here is something you would say is Misfidian, but for everybody watching online, cash is not Misfidian.
Look at this.
Cash.
So you were so excited. You're like, look what I have. I'm like, what do you got there, Gino? $7? Congratulations. What?
$7 and some change.
And some change too. God, get that change away from me. I want nothing to do with change. I hate the sound of change jingling in my pocket. I don't like the feel of dirty cash in my wallet. I just want everything to be electronic now. The way it's going, the way, I'm skating to where the puck is headed. But go ahead, Gino. Tell me about this cash that you're flaunting.
This all goes back to training camp where you and I have a relationship, like we're friends off the air and everything else, but Danger, like the one pet peeve, and I'm sure there's pet peeves you have of me and everybody else, but the one pet peeve of Danger, like we're at camp, drink a water bottle, and Danger takes the water bottle cap off and crushes it.
Crush the empty.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking, okay, we're doing 9 camp shows, you're crushing 2 a day. I'm like, dude, you're wasting money. Like, you're kidding me, right? You're getting upset at me for like, wait, and then I'm factoring in you come from a household that's very prudent with money. Is that a fair statement?
Oh my God. Yeah, it's an understatement.
Yeah, so how do you get away with that? I would think like you do that 20 times.
It's Gino, I'm a faithful guy. I'm true to my family, I'm true to my wife. But every now and then if I can live on the edge and crush an empty, thus throwing a nickel in the trash, I guess I'm gonna have to go with the satisfaction of crushing an empty.
So I went to the place on Lyle Ave. I turned the bottles in. They count it for you, and then cash.
Yeah.
And I get a couple drinks out of this.
Good for you, Gino. Don't spend it all in one place there, Daddy Warbucks.
I love cash.
How many? A friend would say, Danger, you're responsible for at least
50 cents.
50 cents. I mean, I and then I was self-conscious. I started giving you the empty water bottle so I wouldn't crush them.
No, then it became a joke. Like, let's see if Cheapo Gene will actually take the
No,
water
I
bottle.
wanted you to take them because I wasn't going to. And if you're not going to take them, then I will be crushing them. This is what I'm worth?
50 cents.
You know what? I don't want your 50 cents. Here, take it back. I don't want your loose change. Get out of here. Congratulations, Gino. Like I said, don't go too crazy this weekend. I don't know what you got planned, but $7.50. Oh boy.
No, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to this, and then when I get to the border, because the executive producers are going to Montreal next weekend.
That's right.
For celebrating 25.
That's a big one, man. Congratulations.
When you get to the duty free, you get the exchange rate, and all of a sudden I'm going to get a 30% bump. Cash. Clean Canadian cash. But you were telling me that in Toronto, at least, good luck anybody taking cash.
I just think the more you walk around a major metropolis, and I'll consider Toronto one of those, you see signs everywhere. No cash. Cash free. I hadn't been to a baseball game in a long time. MLB baseball game in a long time. And I'm watching the vendors, and I'm like, oh, yeah, no cash. How are they going to work this? And then, they just hand over the thing, and you tap it, and you get your hot dogs.
And
I'm
then
like,
it'll ask you, right, the thing. I try to be self-aware, okay, because if I'm going into the chain restaurant, I don't care. They've already baked it in. But if I'm going into a locally owned restaurant, cash it is, because they work on such small margins. I got to be conscious of that.
I guess you're a better man than I, because I don't even think about that ever. I just don't like carrying cash. I don't like carrying cash. I don't know when that switch happened for me, because it never used to be a thing, and now I'm just like, yeah, if I don't need to carry it, I'm not going to carry it.
You don't think that way? Like, hey, I'm carrying this credit card, and it carries this percentage for the merchant, but if I do a debit card, it's basically...
I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. In that regard, I should be a little bit more conscientious, because I know that, especially with small businesses, that they get gouged by the credit card companies every time you use it. But, well, good for you, Gino. I don't know what you have this weekend. I might not be sober until Monday morning.
It started. I was going to say, like, we're going to start now and go all the way to the holidays.
I feel like it kind of already started. I mean, I did have a cold one already this afternoon. Tonight, you've heard me talk about the guys in my neighborhood before, right?
Oh, before you do that, can I tell the quick story?
Sure.
So this never happens. You and I walk in to work at the same time.
That's right.
I worked from home this morning, as and then we'll walk in the same time. And I want to walk in, and I've got some things to tell Dan DeLorean.
Uh-huh.
And you're right behind me. And Dan DeLorean never sees the two of us walking in the studio.
You think something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
What did I do? What did I do?
He's like the teenagers. Like, what did I do? What's going on? Nothing's wrong, Dan. Just like, the Brandon Bean interview coming up. Oh, yeah. And Danger comes in, and you're already reaching for the cold one.
Went to my fridge.
Yeah, early
went to my little mini
afternoon.
fridge, grabbed the cold one, set a tone. Tonight, and this is something I'm excited about, because we've been talking about this in my neighborhood for months. And you've heard me talk about the guys in my neighborhood, right? You know where East Hilton. I don't say North Greece. I say East Hilton.
Let me see if I can name them.
There's a lot of screened-in garages. There's a handful of Tonys. Go ahead, Gino. Give it a crack.
You got Tony, Richie C, Tim the Commish, Tony.
Timmy Parmesan.
Yeah, Timmy Parmesan we go by. He's also known as Tim the Commish.
Correct.
Too. Neighbor with my brother, by the way. You've got Tony.
You're a much more successful brother, we should point out.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. My brother's the chief of North Greece Fire Department.
More handsome as well.
All right, now you've stepped over the line. Tony, Nikki Signs.
Nikki Signs, yeah.
Nikki G. Tony. And Tony Gazzetta, who we've yet to meet. Another Bear fan. Am I missing anyone?
You forgot about Joey Dryer Sheets.
Joey Dryer Sheets.
You forgot about Nikki Eye Drops. Rob the Takesman.
Oh, gosh.
And Tony. Oh, and Sammy the Bull. And Tony. There's a few. Bourbon night.
Ooh, you're bringing Infinity Bottle tonight.
I am. Now, I'm not going to bring it for the purpose of enjoying it. I'm going to bring it for the purpose of adding to it, because everybody's bringing not an expensive bottle, just, like a good bottle. We're going to try different bourbons. If you haven't tried this brand of bourbon, here it is. Try it out. See what you think. I'm bringing a bottle, and I'm bringing my Infinity bottle, and if I try anything that I like, I will try it, and then I will add it to my Infinity bottle, and then when eventually we will have this awesome blend of bourbons and whiskeys that I can share on special occasions. That's the plan.
Who's the host for this event?
Richie C.
The
gracious host to have us in his backyard tonight. Bourbon and cigars. And tomorrow, Gino, and I'm ashamed to admit this. I shouldn't admit this as somebody who's lived in our region for as long as I have now.
You're going to somewhere for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's pause here. Wrong answers only, everybody. Where would Mike Danger be going for the first time tomorrow?
I'll give you a hint.
All right.
You and the executive producer have done this in the past. Maybe multiple times.
Is it an establishment?
It is. Yes.
Multiple establishments?
No.
No. Okay, I was going to say wine tour.
Gene Battaglia, everybody. It is a wine tour, yes. But it's a wine tour in one specific winery.
Oh.
So I guess it's not a wine tour. It's just...
Oh, yeah. All right, I'll give you a pass. So is this with the Goombas, or are you actually in Sandy?
This is... So I have a friend who's in town with his family from Baltimore, and they're staying in the Finger Lakes. And he's like, buddy, I'm here with my parents, and we're taking it all in. And I'm like, he's staying on Cayuga Lake, which is right next to Seneca, right? Like they're right next to each other. And so right in between Seneca and Cayuga, we're going to a winery there, and I'm going to try all the wines.
Hey, Dangers. As you can see from our Facebook photo that we're enjoying all the wines of the Cayuga Lake region, and we've invested lots of money in the wines, having a great time, and awesome that Gene has the day off.
And who won today, Cleveland or Dallas?
Oh, no, Dallas.
We have spent... I mean, maybe we're nostalgic today.
Yeah. Where did you find that one?
Oh, that's
you
like...
You realize, like, I got to pay the price for that when I get home.
All the wines.
All the wines. Like, thanks, Danger. Thanks. Like, it was my bright idea to, tape my wife when she was enjoying all the wines.
We started the show by talking about the little community that we have here in the sports bar and how... sometimes we have some inside jokes, and if you are new to the show, you might hear us say something or do something, be like, why do they do that? Like, why the
9 times?
Why the 9 times? And why the Mike Francesa?
Oh, who cares?
Why Chuck Muncie? And what the hell is a master stroke? All the wines. I don't want to say that we always speak in code or always inside, but we've been doing this now long enough where... If somebody says, roll the tape, we know what they're referring.
Right.
They're referring to Gene falling on his face in the Patriots-Chiefs game from, what was that,
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
And, all the wines is another one from back in the day.
Wow, that was the infancy of the sports bar.
Mm-hmm.
This begs the question, what winery are you going to?
Oh, what's the name
of it? Well, if it's on Cayuga, I'm not familiar with that tour.
It is the Silver Thread.
Okay, I'm not familiar. So
yeah, this is was referred to me by a friend who has some property down there and said, "Yeah, I'm actually harvesting some grapes down there. If you want to go try some of my grapes, this is the winery to go check out." I'm like, call me, I'm in.
So we don't have plans tomorrow. In fact, we're going to be empty nesters tomorrow.
Oh, good for you.
Do I stay home and watch Buffalo Bills football, or do I, knowing that you're going to be on Cayuga, do I just call an audible, like, hey, producer, let's go to Dr. Frank?
How irresponsible are we as credible authorities on the Buffalo Bills if neither of us are paying attention to week 3 of the preseason?
You listen to our show, chances are either you like the Buffalo Bills to a certain degree or you like football and you recognize, hey, the Bills aren't my favorite team, but I understand why they're so important here and why the guys talk about them. This doesn't feel like Buffalo Bills football tomorrow. I mean, it feels kind of like the Gong Show. I mean, honestly, we're going to have some guy, Anthony Brown, out there, Ben DiNucci. It's going to be a game that we'll point to and laugh at in future years here, and you just hope nobody gets hurt. But it just doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than, okay, we're kind of done with that. Maybe they're looking at a few guys, but for Brandon Beane to say, oh, we don't have the final 53, ding, 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 ding,
yeah,
ding, ding,
right.
ding, 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 ding. Lies.
Yeah.
You can't say the 53 is already chosen. Obviously, you can't say that. But you have to create that impression that tomorrow actually means something, not only for your fans, but to the guys who are actually going to be out there busting their tail.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Carolina looks like with Bryce Young. and that if that first team offense can get anything going against the Bills, non-starters who will be on the field.
Well, how big a story is it if Bryce Young looks...
If he falls on his face.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible. It would be something. It wouldn't be a nothing, let's put it that way, especially if you're a Panthers fan. You want to see him go out there and show up against Bills' second team, third team. We'll have pregame coverage for you tomorrow starting at 11 o'clock. Yeah, Brendan Bean speaking earlier today with the guys from One Bills Live. And, got to check the medicals and got to put the best, saying all the right things. The NFL preseason begins to wind down. We had some action last night. Anthony Richardson was a roller coaster. Threw a touchdown, threw a pick six.
It's his rookie year. That's what he looks like, right?
Fair. Totally fair. I teased this before we went to break. There's a former Buffalo Bill who's going to be missing some time this upcoming season, and he's been removed from the team for quite some time. But when he was here, I feel like he was impactful. He was somebody that certainly grabbed headlines for the wrong reasons one off season here in Buffalo, and that's Zay Jones. Zay Jones, now with the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. And this will not be the Zay Jones revenge game coming up.
That's right.
He's not going to be here week 1. In fact, not 2, not 3, not 4. 5-game suspension for Zay Jones today.
Yeah.
Handed down. And this is in connection to a domestic violence arrest. The charges were dropped back in March. So one of those stories that, okay, I do remember this, and it faded away. And whenever the NFL came up with their investigation.
It's funny, though, man. Like, you hear stories like this, and you see the NFL drop the hammer, and it's a 5-game suspension, and Zay Jones isn't suiting up early this season, and you hear the personal conduct policy. Should we be holding our breath that they don't do the same thing to Von Miller?
Yeah, it's
What's the difference?
What is the difference?
Because what you just described feels like almost the exact same story, and I'm sure that there are differences. But charges were dropped, but you had police investigating, and they were there, and then nobody knows what anybody's talking about.
The cynic in me would say this is Zay Jones, he's not a guy, but not the Cardinals are not going to be. In other words, Von Miller is a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Do we want to, in the NFL, do this to a future Hall of Famer
right.
who might be an executive someday? Do we want to put this stain on?
I don't think Von Miller is going to be an executive someday. Can I just put a stop to that? I know that he's said, I want to be a GM. But when Von Miller says things, usually the opposite happens. And I think he's a fantastic player. I think there's no question he's a Hall of Famer. He'll be in there sooner rather than later. I don't think he's an executive. I don't think he's an NFL executive.
Well, he could be if he wants to roll his sleeves up. Like, nobody is going to say, hey, you're the GM. I mean, like if John Lynch, but it wasn't like John Lynch walked off the playing field and all of a sudden, ta-da, was a GM. If Von Miller is willing to go scout and do other things, and that's the gap there that I don't know. Our phone number, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. You want to talk about regulars. Peter in Rochester.
Hey,
Peter.
There's our guy, Pete. I was just thinking about you because I was scrolling through my feed, and I saw that Pete had some commentary from what we were talking about earlier that, I like to live dangerously, live on the edge, maybe go behind my wife's back from time to time and squander a nickel when I crush an empty water bottle. I like to live on the edge. Pete, how are you, buddy?
I only tweet that because that's my life too. So I literally look up to you as a girl dad and a water bottle crusher. Sorry, Gene.
Nothing wrong with the satisfaction of crushing an empty. I will own that. I will absolutely own that.
There you go. Well, real quick, I just got to tell you all a story because you all are talking about this preseason game, whether you should watch it or go on a wine tour. My wife has a book club. The book club loves the Bills, all right?
Yeah.
And we're doing a picnic tomorrow. Do you want to know what time the picnic is?
4 p.m.
For all of you it's 3. So they don't even care that we're going to be driving, and I'm an East Sider, not because of choice, but I married into this. I grew up in Binghamton, which is like the 315 or the 607 of upstate New York, so I just moved into here. But I will be driving about 20 to 30 minutes in the middle of halftime. So as a Jets fan, I just have to take you all off the hook from watching this game, because if Bills fans are planning a little get-together at 3 p.m. with most of the people driving to Greece on the other side, that tells you what the fans think about this. And the last thing I'll say, E.J. Stewart gave the most brilliant idea of what to do with preseason. Don't do preseason anymore. Just do the scrimmages and tape them just like college football. Let's watch the Bills Pittsburgh. Let's watch the Jets go down to training camp. Just stop the whole preseason and just do that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's funny, Pete. I think
Thanks, Pete.
That might be the direction that they're going to have to head if they're going to make concessions on adding more regular season games.
Well, right. Like the preseason will be cut down to 2, but the NFL is not about ready to give up gate receipts. Like, you can go online right now and get tickets for $5 to tomorrow's game on the secondary market, because everybody's dumping their tickets. You know why people are dumping their tickets? They want to get something back for it. You're a season ticket holder. You paid full price on this. So the preseason will never, ever, 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 ever go away. There'll be always at least a game or 2 games, but there will still be the umbrella of 20. And instead of being 17-3, now it's going to be 18-2.
I meant to ask Peter if I should get a handcuff for Breece Hall. I took Breece Hall with pick 5.
No. Yeah.
I mean,
fantasy football warps our.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, like, I have a friend of mine who's a Bears fan, and he laughed at me for taking Jared Goff. I'm like, yeah, Jared Goff's, quarterback, a pretty good offense. I think he'll probably be okay.
Why would
Well, because we're Bear fans, and you plug your nose, and you're like,
even still though, you look at Detroit, it's like, you're not. There's no disdain for them, right? After all those years of misery.
No. The disdain is towards Green Bay.
Right.
Yeah,
and then Minnesota.
Well, for me, I'm more anti-Minnesota just because that's where I grew up, and being surrounded by Viking fans. Viking fans have you could argue have been through as much as Bills fans and have suffered almost as much as Bills fans have through the course of their football fandom. The Vikings have been that franchise too. They just can't get over. I mean, they didn't do the Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, but in the 70s they couldn't get over. A lot of us weren't there. A lot of us don't remember it. But the people there that are still fans of that team, they say the same things that Bills fans say. Just one before I die. We're cursed. All the same things you hear Vikings fans say. You also hear.
Oh,
Bills
if you want to
fans
get
say.
danger going, just say the Bills are cursed. There's a curse in Buffalo.
Get out of here with that. There's no curse. You make your own luck. We got to get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, forget preseason football. We got real football tomorrow, starting in Dublin. We'll set you up for week 0 here. And
would a real fan of a team not watch that game in order to go to a wine tour? That's my question for you, Gene Battaglia.
Oh.
If I'm such a big Florida State fan, wouldn't I say nay to a wine tour?
You are just embellishing this story. You just will not let
you
this
started
go.
the embellishment by saying I'm a huge Florida State fan, which I'm not.
Huge. I never said that. You said you like Florida State. You do.
When I was a kid.
I'll be texting you updates then tomorrow.
Thank you.
From your winery. By the way, the sweet wines are the better ones. The whites and the just the Finger Lakes in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the reds are.
I have no intention of drinking reds. I'm gonna drink whatever they put in front of me. All the flights. I'm gonna try all the wines. All the wines.
We got this story in college football, and I think that's going to gain steam. One team went overseas and met with the Saudis.
Huh?
One program. Right.
Huh? Well, we're doing that now.
Yeah, okay. Wait a second. No, it wasn't John Wildhack going over a meeting. But
we don't have enough money. We football needs more money.
Oh, you need more money. But I think the idea, and here's the hint, okay? Program in the up and coming, but they're not the blue chip. You're not the big boys. You're not Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. It wasn't any of those programs, but it's a program that, hey, we like them. We like what they did last year.
They're a fun story.
Fun story. But if you want to kind of hit the fast forward button and get the resources you need, I don't know. It's a little unsettling.
Okay.
We got some baseball news here. Did you see Ernie Clement last night? Like it's a home. Oh, okay. I'll describe the home run to you too. Got those stories and coming up and more.
All right, round of shots. Last call still on the way as well. 866-4326 if you want to have the final say here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia with more next on The Fan.
You're listening to the update.
Just one more preseason game for the Buffalo Bills. That is tomorrow. GM Brandon Beane on One Bills Live today says, well, after this, yeah, he'll be exploring options on the waiver wire.
You got to assume that someone could come out there, veteran or on the waiver wire. Now, again, if it's a really good player on the waiver wire, where we're at, the odds of us getting him is not very high. If it's a veteran, though, those guys can choose wherever. So we will definitely monitor all that and see where we can fill in some of these depth spots.
Our pregame coverage begins at 11 tomorrow morning. Bills in Carolina, the 1 o'clock kickoff here on The Fan. Rochester Red Wings are only a game and a half back in the International League behind Columbus. Some news today. Grant Paulson, 106.7 The Fan in D.C., reporting that Dylan Cruz will be called up to Washington on Monday. Rochester Red Wings once again tonight playing at Lehigh Valley. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
If you want pure, unfiltered, unadulterated sports, you've come to the right place. 95.7 FM, The Fan, Rochester.
Your sports weekend's ahead of you. Let's get it going with the round of shots in the sports bar.
Danger, all excited to watch your team at noon tomorrow?
Danger.
Yeah,
this is so funny to me because you would think that a guy that's a big fan of a college program wouldn't miss a week 0 matchup with his favorite team, but instead, that fan will not be watching the game. He'll be enjoying all the wines in Finger Lakes country.
Well, you'll have to report back to us on this winery. Never
I will, for sure.
Florida State, Georgia Tech. That's the game in Dublin. That is on ESPN at noon tomorrow. Florida State, if you're so inclined, -10 on the spread. On the eve of the season, Danger, comes this nugget. Now, the special teams coordinator for Colorado football, either he resigned or was fired, not sure, but this is the story to come out of it. Sports Illustrated, yes, that is still hanging on, that name, that brand. The reporter there is bringing us this. Trevor Riley's the guy that was let go. He's airing some things that really should not surprise us. Riley says he was part of a contingent from Colorado football that went this offseason to Saudi Arabia. This to meet with officials from the Public Investment Fund. Apparently the Saudis were not ready to buy in here on Coach Prime, but who's to say that someday they won't in college athletics? To review, the Saudi government owns multiple soccer teams. They own pieces of others, including Chelsea and Newcastle United. They invest in Florida One. Of course, we've got Live Golf.
So I know that the Public Investment Fund is different than the private equity that the NFL is going to be meeting about.
Totally different, yeah.
Right. But does that, by the NFL saying, you know what, we want to get some more private equity partners involved in our ownership, does that open the door for something like this?
Well, it was the sale for Washington, and I forget who the person was going up. Oh, you don't need to know about my backers. And the NFL's like, yeah, we do need to know. And the speculation was that
he was backed by Saudi.
Yeah, so I would think, and I'm wondering if Congress gets involved here at some point, because hey, the University of Colorado, that's actually a public school. So the hypocrisy here that, hey, we're a public school and we're going to take tax revenue and we're going to do this, but you know what? We need to go outside the country to help the football program. Whoa. Whoa. Live Golf's one thing, but I mean.
Yeah, this, I don't feel like this is the last we're going to hear of this, though. This feels like the first of many occasions where we'll probably hear about the Saudis trying to partner up with American sports.
Well, take, for instance, all right, it's no secret Florida State is kicking and screaming. They want out of the ACC, and so does Clemson. So, well, the thing that's holding them back is the fee. It's exorbitant unless you get somebody who's willing to foot that bill. And that's why Florida State still – also, wouldn't you want the easiest path if you're Florida State? I know they got screwed last year, but – why cry about the past? Like, if the ACC is going to have a seat at this table, if you're guaranteed a spot, why knock your head against the wall against the SEC?
I just think this season of college football is going to be so fascinating because we've never had a season like this. It's just going to be so much fun. And I hope that it's fun in a way and invigorating in a way that it carries momentum into the next season, and we don't view it through the lens of, well, that was good, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I just think it's going to be fantastic. Everything about it.
Well, you want to talk about another thing that's fantastic. Good news is the man with the best name in football. Now, check that. Not football. Maybe in sport. check it. Maybe in the world, the guy with the best name in the world has won the starting quarterback job at Louisiana Monroe.
Oh, I know this.
General Booty will start this coming Thursday night against Jackson State. General Booty, the transfer from Oklahoma.
Okay, so I expect that one of our regulars, Chris, who's a big Sooners fan, will have just as much disdain for General Booty as he does for Caleb Williams, because General Booty has deserted his Oklahoma program for greener pastures there at Louisiana Monroe. Is General a real name, Gino?
It's not short for anything else.
It's General. General is his real name.
Yeah. So if he went into the armed forces and he made his way up, would he be General
Booty?
Yeah. Did you see the pitch that Rochester's Ernie Clement swung at last night? It was eye level. It was completely out of the zone. What did he do? He took such an uppercut, he knocked it out of the park. It was 4 feet 6 inches off the ground. That was the highest, second highest in the StatCast era. It actually looked higher than that. The Jays beating the Angels 5-3. Same two teams tonight at Rogers Center.
So I'm all for our pride in a local guy who's in the pros and who's doing it, the way Ernie Clement is doing it. But how many teams has he played for, and how many more teams do you think he plays for before?
No. So, Ernie was we had him on the show.
Yeah.
And so, totally cool guy, and he just needed a fit. He was in Cleveland. He's found that place in Toronto. He's been a good part for this team. And what's made him valuable is, he can play different. He's kind of settled in as the regular third baseman. Mm-hmm. So, good year for him, and he said he would come back on the show in November. It's funny. He's telling stories like how he can go to he comes back, stays with his grandmother in Fairport, go out to the bars out there.
Nobody knows.
Nobody recognizes
That's
him.
right.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm kind of saying is he's the most unassuming pro athlete from Rochester I can think of.
Right. We drool about others. Oh my gosh, Abby Wambach.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that now it's.
Yeah, we've got one. He's established, right? He's having himself a nice career in Major League Baseball, and if you walk down the street, you probably wouldn't even know that that's a professional baseball player.
Danger, is it fair to say that the Seattle Mariners have some questionable management?
So this is all about the team that has collapsed down the stretch here. They fired their manager earlier this week.
Right. So Scott Service, longtime manager, fired, and probably maybe too little too late.
Did they do a tweet afterwards saying, thanks, Scott, for all you did?
No, quite the opposite. So Scott Service found out the same way we did.
Oh, no.
It was on social media. No one told him.
Oh, no.
Dan Wilson takes over as the interim manager. No experience. Seattle hosting San Francisco. If you're so inclined, that's 10 p.m. tonight on the MLB Network. And again, that collapse. Seattle enters tonight at 500. At one point, they had a 10-game lead in June in the AL West.
I just don't want to see the Astros. That's it. I'm so done with seeing the Astros in the postseason.
They're doing this without Kyle Tucker. Perhaps their best bat in the lineup. They're going to get him back at some point. Oh, you want to see the Astros? That's probably the premier matchup this weekend in Major League Baseball. Houston at Baltimore, 7 o'clock tonight on the MLB Network. That's also going to be the Sunday night game on ESPN. Carlos Rodon going for the Yankees tonight at home. Look, the Yankees should feast against Colorado this weekend. Arizona is at Boston. Potential playoff matchup, Kansas City is at Cleveland. And the Mets, they actually beat Dylan Cease last night. Game 2 of the series out in San Diego tonight.
All right, where are you at mentally with the Mets? How you feeling? You guys just doing a check on my friend.
Yeah, it's football season. Everything is fine.
The mosquitoes?
Stop.
You're fading away.
I had my moment of excitement. And then when they bring out that woman.
Bring the kitties, bring your wife. You got to spit on that thing.
Yeah, bring the hot to a girl.
Yeah.
To throw the first step. Pete Alonso will look great in Cub gear next year. Get ready for that.
Okay.
Finally, good news for Angel Reese, and good for her. The WNBA rookie has a new endorsement. Angel Reese, the endorser of Reese's Pieces. Yes, how could that not happen? Now, are there any products that are named Danger that we can go solicit?
Oh, I'd be a little bit nervous. I mean, it'd probably have like a warning label on it. I'm not suggesting anybody should drink bleach. I'm not going to endorse that.
I actually looked it up. There's something called Danger Tape. I had no idea.
Tape. Oh.
Yeah, I'm Mike Danger for Danger Tape.
Mike Danger was a comic book. I didn't know that until like a couple of
Oh.
years after the name was given to me.
Hmm.
The stage name was given to me by my first program director.
Okay, so what was Mike Danger, the comic book character?
He was like a private investigator. It was like a Mickey Spillane series of comics, and a friend just sent me one, and then he sent me another, and the next thing you know, I've got like this whole series of Mike Danger comic books. I'm not making it up. You're seeing it for the first time, right?
This is fantastic.
Yeah, he's like
Mickey Spillane's Mike Danger.
Yeah, he's like a comic book character.
We gotta get some of these and put them up around.
Oh, I wonder if I still have them somewhere in the cave, saved somewhere.
Oh my gosh!
I doubt
this
I
is
threw them out.
fantastic.
I doubt I threw them out because I, it's one of those things where you have comics. You're like, oh, I wonder if these are going to be worth something someday. I don't know if they're worth anything.
It does look like. It's got this kind of anime kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it's like film noir kind of like old school private investigator kind of deal. I never read them. I just have them. I've never opened them up. I don't know any of the stories other than it looks like a private investigator named Mike Danger, star of the comic book series.
Yeah, Mike Danger, comic books. Oh my gosh. We had the caller, and I'm not going to say it's because they don't advertise, but like he owns a comic book store. Like okay, now I gotta go find the Mike Danger comic.
I don't go looking for them because I'll find them. I'm pretty sure I still have them somewhere.
Still have them.
Yeah, I've got to do some digging in the cave, and if I unearth them, maybe I don't know. Are we allowed to hang anything on the walls? We're not allowed to really hang anything on the walls in here, so we'll find something.
Who's gonna slap our hand?
Oh, I don't know, Chino. I don't know.
Oh, that's right.
I live on the edge.
Your reach.
I live on the edge, but I don't know. I'm going to cross that line and hang something on our sound-soaked walls. I don't know. That seems like a pretty serious.
Like every other radio station in America has their studio.
You walk into most studios in America, and it looks like a dorm room. If like, hell, I don't have to tell you. You guys all watch video streams of all the different sports shows that are out there, whether you like the show where they're on the bus or you like McAfee or Patrick's Man. I mean, they're all different. Like, well, we have our beautiful sound-soaked walls that are so impressive. We can't hang anything on them.
We're able to figure out a way to put Chuck Munson.
Yeah, that's still clutter, though, Gene.
Yeah.
That's still clutter. I think we need to really worry about decluttering a little bit here and keep things tidy. Okay? Let's keep things tidy. Let's focus on what's important.
Management, other than you, is not listening. So
we got to take a break. After that, maybe it's our last break here in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. So we'll sign off with last call at 866-4FAN. And, yes, we have tickets at 866-4326. Caller 5 right now wins a pair. Free tickets to see Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening coming to Kodak Center. That's on December 3rd. Tickets are on sale right now at Ticketmaster.com to see Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin Evening, December 3rd at Kodak Center. Win free tickets if you're caller 5 now. 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country and get the inside scoop from experts. AUDACY. Odyssey.
At Honey Eye Falls in Minden Meadows Marketplace Grocery, their butchers still cut their meat to order, and customers love it. But with an increase in demand comes a need for hiring experienced meat cutters and packagers. So if you know a butcher who might be interested in working for a family-owned business in a small town in a safe community with great benefits, tell them to apply today. 1 day off per weekend is a plus for work-life balance. Honey Eye Falls and Minden Meadows Marketplace Grocery. Butcher should apply at honeyeifallsmarketplace.com.
Today at GetMyPerks.com, receive $50 towards gaming.
The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Who's ready for the preseason finale? The Buffalo Bills, Carolina Panthers. That's tomorrow here on these fine airwaves. Our pregame gets underway at 11 o'clock, kickoff just after 1. And I think Bryce Young starting is a big story for the NFL.
It's funny, the Around the Horn show today, and it's not Kornheiser and Wilbon. Minute Kimes is filling in. That was their lead topic to debate, Bryce Young. Now, we're on the air. I can only imagine what they were saying, but there you see it in the rundown to the right, Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And that is a story tomorrow one way or another. Like, oh, okay, hey, this looks different. The fact that, okay, you haven't seen this year two, but was year one a disaster for Bryce Young? I would say, yeah, it was bad.
It was tough.
It was not good. There wasn't much redeeming value out of it whatsoever. If it looks like that tomorrow against guys who will be on the street at 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean, I try to put myself in his shoes, and yes, you're the number 1 overall pick, but you were drafted by a team who had a coach who didn't want to draft you and wanted to draft the other guy. You see him have all the success that he had in his rookie year, and you're struggling with the clown shoe organization that's run by a dysfunctional ownership. It's tough, but I mean, I have a little bit of faith in Dave Canales in that neck. I mean, the neck is a supreme neck. He was able to resurrect Baker Mayfield. He's able to resurrect.
Wait, Dave Canales has a neck? You're putting him.
Oh, he's all neck team for sure. Canales has a good neck. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see that? It's not quite Davis Mills
or Mike Glennon.
But for as far as coaches go, that's pretty impressive.
Who was the safety from the Niners?
Merton Hanks.
Merton Hanks.
Yeah, Merton Hanks. Yeah, Merton Hanks, all-neck, all-star.
No, but this is the head coach of the all-neck team, Dave Canales.
I would say so, yeah. He's got a pretty good track record of resurrecting quarterbacks. So in that regard, hey, maybe Carolina got something right. I just don't think he's got a lot of talent around him. But if he falls on his face against the Bills' third and fourth teamers or second teamers or whoever you got out there, that's a big story.
Yeah.
That's a big story heading into week 1. You can't take away too much from the preseason, but you can take some things. So we'll be back on Monday to react to all of it and get ready for the regular season. My God.
Oh,
we're less than 2 weeks away.
Monday, we could come back, and they may have already made their decision. Like, let's let these guys go, and maybe if some other team wants them, you're going to try to do the right thing.
So Monday we'll find out if Josh Allen makes the team. I'm here. My reports are telling me. I'm hearing reports. Josh Allen is making the team. We'll be back to react to all of it on Monday. We're back starting at 3. If you missed any of today's show, find us in the free-to-download Odyssey app or wherever you pod. Search out the Sports Bar. JR Sport Brief next on the Fan Rochester. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and 950 The Fan.